In the vast universe, there exists a space where unimaginable things happen. Inside this dawned space, there's also another pocket of area, a prison called Solitude that can only be described as hell. Inside Solitude sits a seemingly blind old man with a scarf tied around his face. A scorpion walks carelessly inside his cell, and he makes a meal of it. After enjoying this delicious meal, he sits upright to meditate. Moments later, a prison guard arrives to address the old man by his cell number, which is 51. He tells him that it is time for a transfer, and the old man follows him without argument. The two start walking through the vast facility, with the blind old man even leading the way. The prison guard is stunned as he cannot believe that a blind dude is walking him. Before coming to pick up the old man, his colleagues had already told him what to expect, but even seeing it firsthand shocks him to his bones. Basically, the structure and architecture of the facility change every month, but the old man is still able to find the way. Not long after, they arrive at the hall where regular prisoners are being held. Basically, everyone in the room is considered a Class 1 prisoner. The old man soon catches the attention of the other prisoners, and as expected, they see him as a small fry whom they can deal with. Apparently, Class 1 prisoners are considered the lowest among the prisoners. The prisoners rank from Class 1 to Class 5 in the prison, and most of them are Class 1, and the best is Class 2. However, the old man notices a strange scent on one of the prisoners, which gets him curious. Not long after this, the transfer portal inside the cell starts, telling the prisoners that it is time to eat. The food finally pops up, and most are disappointed that it is maggot porridge all over again, while some are pleased that they have something to eat at least. Two of the prisoners are still arguing about what is what when one of them gets punched in the head by a pig-headed dude who is a Class 2 prisoner. The moment this happens, the rest of the prisoners freeze in fear. Apparently, this is the norm for the Class 2 prisoners to do whatever they want, and there is nothing anyone can do about it. The pig-headed dude, Tommy, and his gang start munching on the food greedily without paying attention to the rest of the poor prisoners. Standing at the back is a young boy, who tells his brother that he is starving, while the Class 2 prisoners discuss the taste of the food trash being served. Suddenly, the old man steps forward, shocking the Class 2 prisoners. They quickly assert their dominance, telling the old man to stay where he is, because there is no food for him. The old man is disappointed, as he lets the Class 2 prisoners know that they are supposed to show a bit of compassion to the elderly, even though they are in a god-forsaken prison. One of the Class 2 prisoners makes fun of him, telling him that he can only eat if he is in a circle, and there are no exceptions to this. However, the old man refuses to move, shocking the big dude in front of him, who thinks the old man must have lost his mind. The old man's arrogance pisses the dude off, and he grabs the old man by the neck. He raises him with one arm while asking how he was able to locate the food without being able to see. The dude is acting all high and mighty until the old man puts him in his place by turning the tables. Before the dude can even react, he is down on the floor with blood gushing out of his neck. The old dude walks away from the dying prisoner, making it clear to others that touching his eyes is forbidden. The old man defeating the big dude shocks the prisoners, while on the other hand, the pig-headed dude tells his gang members to bring the old man to him. This is when the old man realizes that things are about to get a bit serious. Meanwhile, one of the prison guards is seen talking to the prison warden about the old man. Apparently, he learned that the old man survived 30 days in the maximum punishment cell, and he asks if the old man killed someone again. The prison warden lets the guard know that they are in a prison where thousands die every day, which will definitely make it foolish for them to punish a prisoner because they killed another prisoner. The guard then becomes even more interested in what the old man did, and the warden tells him the sad reality of the prison, shocking the guard to his bones. While they are discussing this, the old man is busy tearing the Class 2 prisoners apart. The leader screams at the top of his voice, telling his comrades to surround the old man, but they can't overwhelm him, since he has something that appears to be a weapon in his hands. Back in the warden's office, he lets the guard know that the old man once killed over 200 people in one night, showcasing just how insanely dangerous he is. As if the old man is living up to what is being said about him, he decimates the Class 2 prisoners in the room. The warden also tells the guard about the marked numbers on the necks of the prisoners in the order of their arrival. He then asks him if he remembers the old man's number, and this is when it dawns on him that the old man is number 51. This sends a cold chill down the guard's spine as the warden lets him know that the old man is a celebrity in the prison. To put it into perspective, he is the 51st prisoner to enter the prison since its inception, and his name is Argel Rastos. By the time Argel is done with the pig-headed dude and his gang, the entire room is filled with shock. While everyone else is panicking and wondering who Argel is, the young boys seem to know who Argel is. He stares at the old man in shock because he can't believe that he has been surviving for the past 64 years. The other prisoners are left in shock and fear because Argel tore through the tough prisoners as if they were tissue. Surprisingly, he didn't kill them, but left them in severe pain. Not even a single one of them is dead from the insane punishment that Argel dealt them. With a weak voice, the pig-headed dude asks Argel what he really is. The old man then asks him if he thinks numbers equal power. Argel admits that having the numbers might work against certain opponents, but he lets them know that their combat ability is trash, which is why they can't even touch him, not to mention touching him. Argel then tells the wounded prisoners that they are going to die in a month, thanks to the injuries he has inflicted on them. However, he lets them know that they are free to come at him if they want to die anytime sooner. The wounded prisoners watch as Argel walks to the pot to serve himself. While the others are complaining about the trash food, Argel is happy that the food is better than the one served in solitary confinement. After Argel is done, the rest of the prisoners gather around the big pot to enjoy their own meals too. The dude from earlier remains cautious of Argyle, and he makes it a priority to protect his brother, Sero, from Argyle. He is still thinking of this when Argyle appears beside him. This shocks him, and he quickly dashes away from Argyle with fear clearly written on his face. He wondered when Argyle reached him and couldn't sense his presence. Argyle turns to Sero, revealing that he can sense the special scent on him. He adds that Sero has a special blood, but his big brother refutes this, saying Argyle is saying trash. Argyle then lets the dude know that he is an old man who is left with nothing but his intuition. Sero's big brother angrily unleashes his furious side, telling Argyle that he is going to kill him if he tells anyone about Sero. Argyle then assures the dude that he has no intentions of doing this, since it will not benefit him in any way. Argyle tells the dude that he is only amused by Sero's special talent because it's been a long time since he saw someone as special as Sero. The dude then turns to Sero, suggesting that they leave. Moments later, the prisoners who went to the quarry return to the hall. There's a rhinoceros beast man, Menlock, and there is the eagle dude, Haluk. There's also a werebeast named Gork, and they all look tired. The dudes suddenly realize that there is blood all over the place, leaving them curious. Haluk crouches down to analyze everything, and he figures out that the blood is like that of a dozen people. This gets him wondering why there's suddenly an attack after months of quietness in the prison. Enraged, Menlock screams out, demanding who made a mess while they were away. With his terrifying voice, he tells whoever is responsible to step out. Without hesitation, Argyle comes out, telling them that he's responsible. Menlock is surprised because he has never seen the old man before. He asks him if he is a newcomer, but Argyle ignores the question, revealing only his name. Menlock smirks because he doesn't want to believe that Argyle, an old man, is the one who made all the mess. Menlock is still spouting nonsense when Haluk notices the number on Argyle's neck. Menlock acts like the alpha male he is and grabs Argyle by the neck. Before he can go too far, Haluk rushes in to slap his hand away. Menlock is shocked that Haluk is telling him to take caution against an old dude. Haluk ignores Menlock and he turns to Argyle, telling him that they want no problem with him, and he urges him not to place a target on their backs too. Argyle is good with arrangements, and he assures Haluk that he won't cause them any trouble as long as they stay away from him. Argyle walks away, suggesting that they live a peaceful life. Moments later, the sleep time in the prison comes into effect. Alongside the sleep time is a no-standing system that is always activated. They are all instructed to lie down with their backs to the floor. When talking about the no-standing rule, it is one of the systems put in place by the prison. The prisoners all wear a gravity resistance device that prevents them from standing during sleep time. However, it is normal for some to resist this, but they are only setting themselves up for a 50-50 chance of dying to spark. Even though the prisoners don't like it, they have no choice whatsoever but to lie down till the next morning. The prisoners are pissed that the guards and the warden control their entire lives. Suddenly, an ugly, weird-looking bug attaches itself to a prisoner's leg without him knowing this. As darkness envelops the room, Menlock asks Haluk why he stopped him from hitting Argyle earlier in the day. Haluk then reveals that he saw something scary, and this was Argyle's prison number 51. Menlock is shocked when he hears this, and he doesn't want to believe that it is true. This basically tells him that the old man has been in the facility since the founding days. This is basically why only numbers were inscribed on his neck instead of class distinctions like them. Menlock agrees with the fact that nothing good comes from involving themselves with someone like Argyle. Menlock is deeply worried, and he asks Haluk if he needs to apologize to Argyle, but Haluk tells him not to worry since Argyle didn't take offense. In addition, Haluk tells him that there's no way he could have known. Suddenly, some stones come rolling down their path, and when they look up, they almost faint at the sight of zombies rushing towards them. The prisoners start to panic, since they can't stand up, thanks to the no-standing system in place. Argyle soon catches wind of this, leaving him to wonder if the bug room opened while he was away in solitary. Just as the zombies close in on him, he forcefully pulls himself up, leaving a sparkling light all around him. Argyle looks really dangerous with an overwhelming aura as he prepares to engage the zombies. Meanwhile, Sero and his brother are surprised to see the horde of zombies, and the brother forces himself to rise despite the gravity resistance device pulling him down. He tells Sero to hide behind a rock and then transforms into a beast amidst the crackling electricity from the spark. Now in beast mode, Sero's brother rampages through the zombies, tearing them limb from limb. Somewhere else, Menlock and Haluk are also battling the zombies, confused as to why they are attacking. Haluk notes that they keep increasing no matter how many they take out. Apparently beastmen can somehow shake off the no-standing system, but the weaker prisoners are sitting ducks and would eventually become zombies. Menlock wonders why the zombies are not affected by the no-standing rule, and Haluk says the system doesn't activate for the dead. Soon, another wave of undead rushes towards the duo, sending shivers down their spine because if they get surrounded, they are done for. Menlock tells Haluk that he's almost out of juice due to the system draining his stamina. Haluk tells him to deceive the system by standing with his back to a rock. Suddenly, Argyle swoops in like an overpowered MC, tearing the zombies apart in one swoop. Menlock and Haluk are left dumbfounded by the old man's terrifying power. They can't believe he took out the horde that fast and in a short time. Argyle then checks to make sure that they haven't been bitten by the vampire zombie fleas. Menlock and Haluk plop to the ground, still dumbstruck, asking him why he helped them. Argyle casually says he just wanted to avoid troublesome situations. From his explanation, they both deduce that he did it because beastmen are usually stronger than ordinary prisoners, and if they become zombies, they will only get even stronger, making it troublesome to deal with. Suddenly, the werebeast, Gork, now a zombie, appears before them, and Menlock is surprised he got bitten. He quickly warns the old man not to take on a zombie werebeast. Argyle, however, is not afraid, and is even thrilled because it has been a while since he fought a werebeast. With one fell swoop, Argyle takes a chop at Zombie Gork's neck, leaving Holuk stunned. Argyle finds the opponent too easy, but he is impressed by his reflexes. However, even though Gork's reflexes are fast, he is no match for Argyle's speed. Holuk notes that the no-standing system doesn't affect Argyle, seeing that he can not only stand but also move around swiftly. Without wasting time, he speedily dodges all Zombie Gork's attacks, leaving Holuk wondering how he can move like that without seeing. Soon, the werebeast changes its form as it transforms into a giant Doberman weredog, becoming several times stronger. But Argyle is unfazed and calls it trash. With ease and precision, Argyle closes in and attacks the giant dog. He uses its massive thigh as a foothold and pushes himself upward until he reaches the top of the creature. With one hand, he claws at its head, and with the other, he drives his weapon across its neck. While taking the dog down, Argyle explains that the dog only made itself vulnerable by becoming too big. Just from simply observing the fight, Holuk decides that to survive in solitude, one must follow the old man. Argyle notices the dog still holding up and barely clinging to life, but he leaves it because he heard someone calling for help. Despite Menlock pathetically begging him not to leave them, Argyle rushes off to help Sero's older brother, who is still having a tough time terminating the zombies and watching his younger brother. Suddenly, Argyle bursts onto the scene and cuts down the remaining zombies in a fast, clean sweep. The bodies fall before anyone can say jack. When the dust settles, the two of them stare at him in disbelief, leaving them stunned and wondering who he is. The following day, the system wakes the prisoners and announces the morning roll call. Surprisingly, out of 94 prisoners, 80 of them didn't make it, and only 14 survived. While the announcement is going on, Argyle props himself on a tall rock and starts meditating. After counting the survivors, the system announces that it will be replenishing the missing personnel. The prison is soon filled with golden lights as new prisoners are teleported in to replace the dead ones. The new prisoners are left questioning their environment, as everywhere is stinky, covered with blood and corpses. Having no energy to haze the new guys, due to the fatigue from last night's zombie raid, the old prisoners ignore them and decide to rest, as everyone scrambles to their own place to catch some Z. Soon, the morning roll call ends without any fun hazing moments. Meanwhile, Argyle is still meditating with satisfaction because he has eliminated all the infected zombies. Apparently, the outbreak was caused by the vampire zombie fleas from earlier. These fleas kill with a single bite. While thinking about it, Argyle suddenly hears something with his super ear, which once again piques his interest. He jumps down from the rock and heads towards a door, leaving everyone curious as to where he was going. They are shocked when they see him pushing a door, preparing to step outside. The newbies also want to follow suit, but Holuk warns them to go outside only if they want to meet Hades, because no one has ever returned after walking out that door. He tells them that the corridors are filled with the craziest, shadiest creatures ever seen, and these creatures can stamp prisoners out like ants. This thought of unimaginable, shady creatures only piques Argyle's interest. While strolling through the corridor, Argyle meets a small green elf named Jacob, who calls him master and says it has been too long. Apparently, Jacob has been expecting Argyle to come after hearing the commotion. Argyle wonders how he knew to meet him in the corridor, and Jacob reveals that he paid the guards 5 gold coins for the information. He is pissed thinking about the greedy guard, Hoges, who sold him the information for an exorbitant price. However, Jacob insists it was worth it just to see Argyle again. Argyle immediately sits down, telling Jacob to cut the idle crap and get to business. It turns out that Argyle meets with Jacob monthly to redraw the prison map, as the entire layout shifts on a monthly cycle. After a conversion 2 days ago, Jacob needs a new map. Basically, the conversion periodically changes the prison, making it impossible to memorize all paths. Argyle, however, is the sole exception, capable of retaining the full layout in his mind. Jacob watches in awe as Argyle sketches the map, marveling at his skill. No matter how often he sees it, the process remains incredible. Though Argyle claims he just senses it, Jacob finds it truly phenomenal every time. Moments later, Argyle finishes the map, and Jacob thanks him, offering him anything from his magic bag. Argyle asks for proper food, making Jacob laugh at his simplicity. Jacob then produces a platter of delicious meat, which Argyle starts devouring. While he eats, Jacob shares some information, telling him a summoning will occur today in all lower-class cells, listing the monsters expected to appear. Argyle notes that the most troublesome ones will definitely appear. He says the information is valuable since summonings are irregular and unpredictable. Jacob then asks Argyle if the usual troublemakers, a group of demon-like dudes with skulls, have been causing any problems recently. Argyle replies that things have been quiet and warns Jacob to stay in his lane. Jacob quickly apologizes for being a nosy Parker and bows to him as he tells him to stay safe. Argyle turns to leave, reminding Jacob to be careful on his way back. After the meeting, Argyle stops at a door labeled merchandise storage, likely linked to Sero. He reasons the prison warden must have shipped him to this location for a specific reason. Argyle notes that he hasn't been feeling too fly and reminds himself to collect his reward from the warden. Argyle heads back to the cell, and the room erupts as he opens the meat platter Jacob gave him. The prisoners are curious about the smell, and soon they notice Argyle sitting with a feast in front of him. Everyone is stunned to see actual meat instead of the usual maggots. 3 idiots try to take the food by force, but Holuk and Menlock intimidate them, threatening to use their flesh for shawarma. One look at the terrifying Menlock sends them fleeing. Afterward, Argyle studies Holuk, calling him a sparrow. Holuk fires back, insisting he is a golden eagle. Menlock, drooling, asks where the meat came from, and Sero's eyes nearly pop out of their sockets as he stares at the food, though his brother calls his name to keep him under control. Argyle ignores all their questions and simply invites them to join him. After enjoying the food, they plop to the ground, still reeling from the delicious food. Huluk is the only one who kneels, thanking Argyle for the meal and for saving them during the last zombie raid. Argyle rejects the gratitude, saying that surviving in solitude is nothing to be grateful for. He warns that living in this prison will eventually make them resent being alive. He explains he saved them because he sensed their desperation to live. When he asks if they want to survive solitude, they all agree, until Argyle asks what they will do when survival instincts push them toward ending their own lives. This question leaves them terrified. Argyle tells them this is what life in solitude becomes, then asks if they still want to survive. After a moment, Menlock says he refuses to die in a place like this. Huluk also declares he plans to make it through. Sero's older brother adds that he wants to survive and return home. Sero quickly chimes in, saying he wants to go home too to see his father again. Seeing their determination, Argyle decides he needs allies, with the end approaching. He decides to keep the group and tells them about today's summoning, urging them to prepare. Elsewhere, two men are clearing out corpses. One of them is frustrated and complains about having to do such filthy work. His companion tells him to endure it because the bodies must be removed, or they will spread disease. The first man keeps grumbling and blames their miserable situation on being too weak. After tossing another corpse into the dump, they cover their noses as the terrible stench of the decaying pile hits them. Staring at the mountain of bodies, one of them mutters that the prison truly deserves its reputation as the worst place in the universe. He mentions hearing from older inmates that an old man slaughtered all these people, though his friend does not believe it. Suddenly, golden lights appear and giant floating heads materialize, slithering their tongues as if sensing food. As the prisoners panic and flee, Huluk calls to Argyle, who is still meditating, and Argyle calmly explains that the heads only process filth and corpses. Huluk asks if they are dangerous, and Argyle says they only attack when provoked. Suddenly, a stupid fat dude kicks one of the heads, and it angrily attacks him. Argyle then questions Huluk about what he asked him to handle. Huluk says he has taken care of everything and is working on some additional preparations. Argyle is pleased and tells him they need to head back and prepare. Meanwhile, one of the cleanup dudes, still reeling from the smell of rotten flesh, tells his friend to tone down the dramatics because they see corpses all the time outside. His friend shoots back, saying he has seen a lot of corpses, but it is his first time watching them decompose. The dark-haired dude smiles, telling his friend to get used to it because they will be seeing more. Suddenly, the golden lights flicker again, and a giant two-headed fire-breathing reptile is summoned. Everyone is left in shock, wondering what the hell is happening. The crowd takes to their heels, scattering in every direction as the double-headed dragon begins transforming the entire prison cell into pure hell. Unfortunately, with the fire and chaos, most of the prisoners are charred to medium rare. Meanwhile, Huluk and Argyle take shelter behind a tall rock, and Huluk asks Argyle if this is the premium event he told them to prepare for, to which Argyle affirms. Argyle watches as the prisoners are cooked like Wagyu beef, and he remembers his meeting with Jacob. He reasons that the fire-breathing dragon is the most troublesome monster he was worried about. Meanwhile, the rest of Argyle's gang is also with him behind the rocks. Menlock wonders if they can survive the heat from the fire, and Argyle tells him not to worry because their preparation should be sufficient. He tells them that to survive, they must do as he says. Moments later, the dragon heads their way, bellowing fire everywhere, and Argyle tells everyone to prepare for impact. He tells them that the dragon only breathes fire 10 meters towards its prey, and it takes a 1-second gap before shooting out flames. He advises them to swiftly hide behind a rock once they see the dragon. He adds that they might get slightly burned, but they will surely survive. He also reminds them to pay attention to the position of the dragon's head just as he taught them. The group takes Argyle's advice as they masterfully maneuver through its flames successfully. Apparently, under Argyle's supervision, they had collected stones from within the cell and created a barrier to block the flames. Although they questioned his plan and complained earlier before the summoning, this plan still prevented them from being roasted. Apart from moving the rocks, they also mixed soil with water to make mud, which they threw at the dragon whenever it was distracted. This is because, according to Argyle, this dragon breathes through its skin, and the mud makes it difficult for it to breathe. After splashing mud on the dragon, its labored breathing made it difficult for it to move, and its vision was even blocked. When it is Argyle's time to cause chaos, like his usual overpowered MC self, he uses his favorite weapon, swiftly slashing the dragon in 100 places at once, giving it no time to catch its breath. Watching Argyle work this wonder once again reminds Huluk that to survive in solitude, one must stick to the old geezer-like glue. After the dust dies down and silence settles in the cell, the remaining prisoners peep from behind the rocks to make sure it is safe to come out. Seeing that the chaos has ended, they walk out into the open and are shocked to see the monster sprawled lifeless on the ground, with its bits and pieces scattered all over like sausages. They can't believe the old geezer actually defeated such an untouchable creature. The rest of the prisoners watch Argyle and his crew in awe, standing over the dead monster. However, before they can catch their breath, the golden lights appear again, signaling another summoning, which leaves everyone stunned and weary. Just with his expert sense, Argyle can tell that over 10 fire-breathing dragons have been summoned. Huluk and the rest of the crew almost shit their pants as they wonder if they will even survive the next bout of roasting. Before anyone can say jack, raging flames erupt from the dragons, frying a few more survivors. Soon the cell is filled with different types of screams from the victims. Argyle, meanwhile, still maintains his chill guy demeanor as he contemplates how to defeat the dragons. He reasons that defeating all of them at once isn't difficult, but keeping all his crew members alive will be difficult. Sero's brother, on the other hand, is more occupied with protecting his younger brother as he tells him to hide behind him. The Sea of Fire leaves the crew terrified and scared shitless as Holuk asks Argyle if they need to follow the same strategy as before, but Argyle tells him no. To their shock, Argyle tells the crew that they need to head to the corridor. With no questions asked, they follow behind as he clears the way for them. Although Holuk is skeptical about this plan, he doesn't question Argyle. Menlock, however, is terrified and questions Argyle about this risky decision to go into the corridor. Holuk tells him to chill and says sticking to the old man is their best bet to survive this hell's fury. However, Menlock is such a wimp and keeps hesitating, and ultimately, one of the dragons catches up to him. Fortunately, the old man swoops into action and swiftly destroys the dragon, saving Menlock's wimpy arse. Meanwhile, Menlock almost craps his pants and stays frozen in place, still shaking. Argyle pulls him out of the trance by reminding him of his earlier determination when he said he didn't want to die meaninglessly in solitude. Moments later, he joins the crew as they walk into the corridor with Argyle behind them like a papa bear, urging them to move quickly, but he soon takes the lead, walking ahead of them. The corridor is hazy, making Holuk complain that he can't see shit. Fear grips him as he finally comes face to face with the notoriously dangerous corridor. Argyle tells them to stay alert, as they might encounter other prisoners, especially Class 3 or Class 4 prisoners. Not minding their scared demeanor, he continues to scare them by saying that they might be killed in the blink of an eye. Holuk offers to take the rear position since he has good eyesight. Like a proud Gramps, Argyle says he will be counting on him, but warns him never to stray from the group. As they continue the journey, Holuk's sixth sense begins to twitch, and he feels something watching him from the shadows. He suspiciously scans the area, questioning if it is really okay to be in the corridor. Although not visible, Holuk suddenly sees the mysterious figure, which confirms his suspicion. He immediately calls out to the old man, telling him they need to go back to the cell. However, he stops mid-sentence in horror, realizing he is the only one standing there. Holuk looks around the empty space, calling out for his master, who, along with the crew, is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Menlock frantically searches for Holuk, calling out his name. Argyle quickly stops him, telling him to quit yelling like a sissy unless he wants a target on their back. Menlock is visibly worried, unable to understand how Holuk vanished in an instant. Argyle explains that some creatures in the corridor can shift positions at will. When Menlock asks if a ghost kidnapped Holuk, Argyle bluntly confirms it. He warns them that the corridor is filled with unimaginable things, leaving them terrified. Menlock believes the ghost thing because it happened right before his eyes. He is, however, worried they might never find Holuk. Argyle tells him not to worry about finding the sparrow, forgetting how much Holuk hates that nickname. Still, Argyle admits he isn't sure whether they'll find him alive. Meanwhile, as Holuk strolls through the lonely path, he thinks about the corridors with no end in sight, filled with unknown places created by the universe's great magicians and genius architects. The thought of being left alone in the corridor terrifies Holuk. His senses begin twitching again as he feels something approaching. He is stunned when a giant ogre appears, towering over him, and without hesitation, the ogre swings its massive wooden baton. Holuk loses his composure and even a few feathers before reminding himself to stay focused. He spins rapidly and narrowly avoids the blow. Realizing he is no match for the creature, he decides to run for his life. Unfortunately, just as he darts in the opposite direction, another giant ogre blocks his path, trapping him between two looming catastrophes. Now trapped, Holuk desperately searches for a way to avoid being torn to bits. He quickly spreads his feathers and takes off, rising above the ogres as they claw at him with bare hands. He slips past a series of attacks, darting through the air to stay out of their reach. With one last burst of determination, Holuk launches himself upward, reminding himself that he cannot die in this miserable place. He nearly escapes, but unfortunately, one of the ogres snatches him like a piece of trash. As the ogre opens its foul mouth to devour him, Holuk sees his life flash before his eyes and wonders if it will truly end this meaninglessly. Holuk decides to shout one final, desperate hurrah for help, and as if the universe suddenly takes pity on him, a pig-headed guy named Becky comes charging in out of nowhere, gripping a baseball bat like he's been waiting his whole life for this moment. Becky delivers a brutal swing to the ogre's thigh, freeing Holuk from death's disgusting, smelly jaws. The blow sends the giant ogre screaming in pain like a complete sissy. Holuk scrambles to safety, utterly baffled by what he just witnessed. He cannot wrap his head around how a small pig dude with a simple bat managed to flatten a massive monster that was seconds away from turning him into bird soup. While Holuk is still trying to process the insanity of the situation, Becky proudly stands over his fallen opponent, chest puffed out as if he just won a championship match. Without wasting a second, Becky raises his bat again and delivers another powerful swing to the ogre's head, all while narrating like a commentator hyping up a grand baseball finale. The second ogre also swoops at him, but it is no match for Becky's incredible speed. With one powerful strike, Becky smashes his bat into the creature's face, taking it out. Holuk is left stunned as he watches the entire scene unfold, completely shocked that Becky can take down two giant ogres so effortlessly. After defeating them both without breaking a sweat, Becky hops around in delight, proudly calling it a double home run. The next thing that happens leaves Holuk in disgust and shock at the same time, as the tiny pig dude starts gnawing at the ogre's flesh like brisket. Seeing the gruesome gnawing sight makes Huluk realize that Becky is a Class 4 prisoner and way out of Huluk's league. Huluk has no choice but to shamelessly fall on his knees begging Becky to help him. With his mouth still full and with a sizable chunk of ogre meat in his hand, Becky stops, intently watching Huluk. Huluk remains on the ground looking quite humble as he reasons that his life and death are in Becky's hands. For a moment, Becky seems surprised to see him and asks while he is still lingering when the game is over. Shame leaves Huluk and flees as he tells Becky he can't die like meaningless trash. Becky feels offended and wonders why Huluk is treating him as if he were some deranged killer. He continues speaking but stops mid-sentence to sniff at Huluk. Suddenly, he angrily flings his precious ogre meat aside, demanding angrily why Huluk smells like the old blind geezer. Becky threatens Huluk to answer immediately, leaving Huluk nearly paralyzed with fear. Realizing Becky is talking about Argel, Huluk tries to speak, but a group of strange prisoners who seem to know Becky interrupts. Their frightening appearance makes Huluk break out in sweat. The number on one prisoner's neck shows they are also Class 4. Like a papa bear, the giant dude reminds Becky that he should not be roaming alone. A redhead with hair covering her face like Medusa praises Becky for catching an ogre, calling it a divine blessing. Another tall, Frankenstein-like prisoner also commends Becky. The black-haired dude soon notices Huluk, terrified at the sight of the Class 4 prisoners. Huluk is scared out of his mind. Visibly shaken, he recalls Argel's warning that their cell was actually quite safer than the other parts of the prison, even with the zombie situation. Elsewhere, Argel and the rest of the crew are still searching for Huluk. Suddenly, Argel signals everyone to halt, and Menlock asks if he has any update on Huluk. Argel peers down an opening, inviting them to look. Below, they are stunned to see a vicious creature with 6 hands and massive blades in place of wrists. The creature is surrounded by corpses, with more stabbed by its deadly arms. Argel warns that the monster is powerful and could easily crush a Class 5 prisoner like a melon. He explains that all the creatures in the corridor have names, and this one is called a decapitator. It is named decapitator because it cuts heads for a living. Argel emphasizes that there is no safe zone near it, and cautions them to be extremely careful. After the lecture, they continue on their way, and Argel tells them that with their weak abilities, none of them would survive an encounter with Decapitator. Menlock quickly swears never to enter the corridors again. Argel asks if he is afraid, and Menlock replies that it hardly seems like a place for fun walks. Argel then asks if they should give up on finding Huluk, but Menlock, determined, insists he cannot abandon his friend. Impressed, Argel agrees they must continue the search. Doubt returns as Menlock asks if they can really find Huluk, and Argel reassures him they will. Meanwhile, Becky grills Huluk about Argel. Huluk asks him to calm down, insisting Argel is just a cellmate. Becky, unconvinced, threatens to pluck Huluk's feather. The giant dude asks what is happening, and Becky explains he caught the old man's scent on Huluk. The revelation sends shivers down their spine. Uruk, the Frankenstein-looking prisoner, starts crying for help, saying he must run or he might die. The giant dude chews on a piece of ogre meat and tells Uruk to chill, reminding him that the old man isn't present. He sits to tear off more meat and calls the redhead to eat. The redhead declines, saying he wants to talk with Huluk. The giant dude tells him to keep it brief and adds that he is disappointed they cannot eat chicken since Huluk seems connected to the old man. The redhead turns to Huluk and promises not to eat him. Still terrified, Huluk stammers as he responds. The redhead tells him that in solitude, Argel is the target of many beings, and anyone associated with him inevitably gets targeted. This revelation terrifies Huluk, and he asks about these beings. She replies that they are monsters so fearsome that no one can even make eye contact with them. The redhead then casts a spell that heals all Huluk's wounds and says she recited a prayer to ease his mind. Moments after the spell, she cautions him to stay careful on his way back, and turns to leave with Becky and the others. As they depart, Uruk, still trembling, mutters that he is glad they didn't run into Argel. The giant dude tells him to stop being a drama queen, while the redhead mutters a blessing to Huluk before leaving. Left alone, Huluk cautiously continues into the unknown abyss. Suddenly, distant footsteps echo and he freezes in terror, but to his relief, it is Argel and the crew. Menlock tells him that they found him thanks to Argel, so Huluk thanks Argel and the crew for their rescue. Moments later, Huluk tells them about the Class 4 prisoners he encountered. He tells Argel about the redhead, a follower of the light constellation. Argel remarks he might not have been so lucky if it were a follower of the void constellation. Soro, intrigued, says he's heard of it before, and his brother explains that the universe has godlike beings in the light and dark void constellations, both filled with fanatics who believe in an afterlife. Even in solitude, prisoners are divided between the factions. Menlock, unconcerned with the talk about gods, is simply relieved that Huluk made it back alive. Argel remains impressed that Huluk survived alone in the corridor and considers training him into a fang just as he has done with many others in the past. He reasons that the training takes time, but his main concern is that he doesn't have much time left. After catching up, they continue their journey. But Argel suddenly senses danger. He tells them to run, but before they can, an explosion erupts behind them. From the rubble, the fierce Decapitator emerges. They scramble as it attacks them with its massive blades. Sero's brother hoists him onto his back, telling him to hold on tight. Shocked, Huluk asks Menlock about the monster, since he wasn't present when Argel showed them. Menlock names it, but Huluk remains confused, so Sero's brother, while running, explains that the monster is called Decapitator and recounts Argel's tale. Huluk realizes the ogres he faced were like sewer rats compared to this. Menlock, not understanding what Holuk means, just screams at him to run. Argyle, far ahead, warns them they will be instantly killed if the decapitator catches them. While running, he tries to figure out how to separate himself from them since the monster is after him. The monster almost pinches Holuk, who calls out, telling Argyle he is almost out of juice. Argyle spots a narrow passage and tells them to get inside, confident the monster cannot follow. As expected, Decapitator gets stuck at the entrance. The crew relaxes, thinking they've escaped, but Argyle warns this is only the beginning. He instructs Holuk to lead the group through another exit while he lures Decapitator away. Holuk agrees, but before they can move, the monster breaks through, forcing them to race for their lives. Argyle runs in the opposite direction as the monster gives chase. After escaping, Holuk and the others stop to rest. Menlock worries about their safety, but Holuk reassures him that Decapitator went after Argyle. Sero's brother suggests helping Argyle, but Holuk refuses, insisting Argyle can handle himself and that they must follow his plan. They all decide to return to the cell as Argyle instructed. Meanwhile, Argyle is having a heart-to-heart convo with Decapitator. He wonders if Argyle is tired of running and offers to cut off his leg. Slightly offended by Argyle's refusal to respond, Decapitator teasingly tells him to say his last words. Argyle calmly asks if the monster truly wants to kill him, and Decapitator confirms, insisting it is because Argyle deceived him. Argyle denies this, but Decapitator, like a nerd, states the exact moment, down to the second, Argyle supposedly lied. Apparently, 4 years ago, Argyle promised to play rock, paper, scissors with him. This stupid reason astounds Argyle because ghosts are mentally unstable and shouldn't be able to use ChatGPT. Suspecting someone named Saddle is pulling the strings, Argyle calls him out, and he initially feigns ignorance, but Argyle cleverly reveals some information to lure him out. This works, and Saddle reveals his presence within the monster. He laughs, impressed that Argyle noticed his work even without eyes. Argyle humbly pretends he didn't, saying he was only testing the waters. Suddenly, it is revealed that Saddle, a demon worshipper and necromancer, controls Decapitator using magic. Argyle is not surprised as he proudly reminds Saddle that he belongs to a higher class than him. While bragging about his own greatness, Argyle is suddenly attacked by Decapitator. 5 years ago, Saddle had been a weak, useless nobody, but now he believes he has finally grown strong enough to defeat Argyle. As usual, Argyle casually maneuvers each strike without breaking a sweat. Saddle keeps attacking him using Decapitator while boasting about his power to command every ghost in the corridor. He is convinced that no matter how invincible the old man seems, Argyle cannot escape his new digs. He also declares that Argyle is no match for him because he is a Class 5 prisoner. Saddle claims he can already overpower other Class 5 prisoners with ease, and warns Argyle to surrender before it is too late. While the chatterbox boasts proudly, Argyle moves with precision, dodging every strike from Decapitator. He remains completely unfazed by Saddle's new hobby, and reminds him that he has survived in the prison for 60 long years. Saddle shows no interest in Argyle's bragging, foolishly believing he can finish him after just 5 years of experience. As Argyle counters Decapitator's attacks, he calls Saddle a baby and emphasizes that the gap in their experience is vast and impossible for Saddle to understand. Saddle ignores Argyle and questions him, but soon regrets it as Argyle deals him a fatal blow with his dagger. While slashing Decapitator in a million places, he lectures Saddle, saying he wasted 5 years of training only to learn baby steps. After lecturing him, Argyle immediately starts slashing the monster, cutting off its limbs like sausages. In a short time, the scene is covered with blood as Argyle easily tears Decapitator apart, proudly asserting his dominance. After defeating the monster, Argyle proudly stands on its corpse, feeling fly. He then notices Saddle's mark, which was controlling the monster, on its forehead. He grabs the Decapitator by its expensive Brazilian weave and drives his blade into its skull, breaking the mark. While doing this, he tells Saddle to inform the demon worshippers not to do useless things. Meanwhile, Holuk continues to lead the crew back to the cell. He didn't notice that finding paths in the corridor was extremely difficult because Argyle was leading them. Menlock questions if they are on the right path. He also wonders if the old man was doing fine because he had heard loud noises before, but it was now quiet. Suddenly, Sero calls their attention, pointing ahead at Argyle. Argyle casually remarks that they are late. Everyone is surprised to see him and questions how he escaped the monster. While they debate his sudden arrival, Menlock says that nothing surprises him anymore with the old man. Argyle ignores their questions and orders them to enter the cell. He explains that the fire-breathing dragons must have entered the corridors. Sero turns blue in horror at the charred black corpses inside the cell. The sight disgusts him, and he nearly pukes as his brother checks on him. Argyle offers no comfort but grabs Sero by the shoulder and tells him to get used to it, since this is the reality of solitude. Still terrified, Sero mutters that those who are weak cannot survive here. Argyle disagrees, saying everyone, weak or strong, can die at any time. His words remind Holuk that countless people arrive daily in solitude, and the same number die each day. Regardless of class, ability, or connections, death comes for all. Holuk reflects on the darkness in solitude, and the people who are cowed before they can fight back. Menlock expresses his distaste for solitude as they watch the ugly janitors swallowing corpses. Holuk calls it a recycling factory where prisoners are killed, processed, and replaced endlessly. As Menlock and Holuk discuss the daily roll call, the system announces the start of the ritual. Shockingly, out of 690, only 5 remain, meaning only Argyle and his crew survived. Their cell is understaffed, and the system notifies them that they will be transferred. The news leaves everyone stunned, even Argyle. The teleportation begins, and as they are teleported out, Sero clings to his brother, terrified. During the transfer, Argyle warns they might be separated. This information doesn't sit well with them. Sero's brother is more concerned about Sero and tells him to cling to him tightly. Argyle rambles a bunch of gibberish about release and liberation after transfer. He advises them to run towards the sea if they ever reach the jungle. Everyone is confused, but before they can ask questions, they are zapped away. Moments later, Argyle finds himself in cell number 3, 498. He feels a little disappointed because he wanted to help the crew develop, but they were all separated. Just then, he sees Sero beside him, frantically searching for his older brother, Lucas. Argyle immediately realizes the prison warden arranged this. He resolves to focus only on managing the merchandise, Sero, and notes that he might soon meet with the warden. Meanwhile, Sero keeps calling for Lucas, oblivious to his surroundings. Argyle, weary because his time is short, plans to guide him and achieve his goals. Soon, Sero spots Argyle and calls out. Argyle explains that their new cell is like a zoo, holding around 300 prisoners, judging entirely by the sounds. From a distance, 2 thugs spot them and approach, thinking they can take on an old man and a boy. They plan to enslave Argyle and eye Sero hungrily. Seeing the strange look in their eyes, Sero quickly darts behind Argyle. Suddenly, a voice echoes behind them, stopping the thugs. A red-haired woman, Rosna, appears carrying heavy melons. She walks in confidently with a group of bald men claiming Sero as hers. Proudly, she calls the thugs arrogant trash, forcing them to flee. She then orders a minion to bring Sero to her. The man grabs him, and Sero clings to Argyle, screaming. But Argyle pretends to ignore it. While struggling, Sero suddenly convulses violently, breaking free from his grip. The man is stunned, unable to understand what is happening. Rosna grows annoyed, calling him trash for failing to do his job. Argyle stays chill, wondering if he will finally see Sero in action. Meanwhile, Sero continues convulsing as the man beside him tells Rosna he hasn't done anything to the boy. When the man turns, he finds Sero standing behind him. Argyle, on the other hand, is thrilled by Sero's sudden transformation. He is eager to see just how much value the boy truly possesses. Rosna is impressed with Sero's transformation and plans to raise him. She orders her minion to grab him. The man angrily tries to grab him, but Sero claws at him and misses. Since he is not supposed to harm the boy, the man tells him to stay still. Sero continues to slip through his hands until another dude steps in and knocks him out from behind. After knocking Sero out, he slaps the incompetent first dude. Argyle suddenly steps forward as they grab Sero. The second dude, feeling smug, tells him to get lost and tries to smack him, but Argyle grabs his wrist and casually slams him to the ground. He also knocks out the incompetent dude, freeing Sero from his grip. Rosna is impressed with Argyle's skills. Argyle is not too impressed because even with his awakening, Sero can't beat a Class 2 prisoner, but Argyle still wants to train him. Rosna notices him spacing out and scolds him for knocking out her minions, whom she calls her children. She pulls out her whip to intimidate him, but Argyle says only the Grim Reaper scares him. Rosna accepts the challenge, vowing to show him real fear. She snaps the whip through the air, promising to tie him up and peel his flesh. Despite her threats, Argyle doesn't move, saying she will soon swallow her words. Suddenly, a giant man named Margan interrupts them with a cool Avenger pose. Rosna is annoyed by his flashy entrance and claims Argyle is hers, telling Margan to butt out. Margan ignores her and warns her to back off while he is still being nice, but she gives him the middle finger instead. Margan threatens to start a war if she fights him, yet Rosna is unfazed and even eager to begin one. With Margan refusing to back down, Rosna soon finds herself surrounded by his minions, each bearing his mark on their forehead. Realizing she is cornered, Rosna calls Margan sneaky and decides to retreat. She mutters that their fight would only make someone named Beckham happy. She then walks off with her minions and gives Margan the middle finger again, promising to get back at him someday. Margan ignores her and is simply glad she backed down. When Argyle asks who he is, Margan excitedly introduces himself, reminding Argyle that he saved him in the jungle a year ago. He bows respectfully, calling Argyle Big Brother and swearing never to forget the life-saving act, but Argyle claims not to remember him. After thinking, he assumes he must have unintentionally saved someone while hunting natives in the jungle during liberation. Even though Argyle doesn't remember, Margan still kneels and begs to serve him. His followers are stunned to see their leader bowing to an old geezer. Margan snaps at them, ordering them to bow as well. His entire gang quickly kneels, calling Argyle Big Brother. Argyle, however, does not care for the noise and finds the display a bit annoying. Shortly after, Sero wakes up screaming from a dream about Rosna's minions capturing him. He is surprised to find himself in a bunker with Argyle talking to Margan. Margan explains that they are in Cell 3, 498, which contains 3 factions. The first is the Axe Circle, which he leads. The second is the Whip Witch Circle, led by Rosna. And the third is the Blade Master Circle, led by a man named Beckham. He adds that all circle leaders are Class 3 prisoners, and these factions maintain balance in the cell. Margan says they are preparing for release and that each circle is searching near the cell. From his explanation, Argyle learns that Margan has been in solitude for 3 years and is impressed that he has adapted so quickly. Margan credits his progress to Argyle saving him a year ago. Argyle thanks him for the information and says he wants to rest. Margan tells him to call if he needs anything and then offers them food. Sero is speechless when he sees the disgusting insects they are meant to eat, but Argyle begins eating without hesitation. Moments later, Sero asks why Argyle did not help him earlier and wonders if it was because Argyle saw him as a weak imp. Argyle realizes Sero does not remember his OP moment, but chooses not to remind him. He simply tells Sero that they would not be together now if he had abandoned him. Sero is stunned, and Argyle asks if he is afraid. Sero admits he is, saying he feels useless without his brother Lucas. Argyle tells him he is not weak, and explains that a person's strength or weakness depends on the opponent they face. He says he wants Sero to survive in solitude and offers to help him grow stronger. Argyle adds that to become strong, he must first eat. Sero questions him, asking why eating matters. Argyle replies that the thing he fears most is hunger, because nothing is more painful than starvation. He warns Sero to eat the bugs, or he will never become strong. Sero gathers his resolve, vowing to grow stronger for his brother. Even though the bugs are disgusting, he forces himself to eat them. Meanwhile, in Rosna's circle, one of her minions asks another where she is. A bear beast man tells him that she went out to give her regular report. Elsewhere, Rosna, now wearing a red cloak, bows before a red glowing orb. A voice asks about her progress, and she reports that they will be able to completely collect the life force by the next liberation. She also tells her master about Argyle's and Sero's arrival in the cell, but says there is no need to worry about them. The voice grows curious and asks her to explain more about Argyle. From her description, the voice seems to recognize him. A fiery demon face emerges from the orb and ignores Rosna's question, promising to handle it personally. Stunned that her master intends to come to the cell, Rosna offers to capture Argyle before his arrival. The voice finds this amusing and grants her permission to capture him dead or alive. Rosna bows to the floor in acknowledgement, calling the voice the great leader of demons. As she departs, she tells her master to anticipate her triumph. Proudly pulling down her cloak to reveal her melons, she confidently vows to capture her prey, Argyle and Sero, for her master. Back in the cell, Argyle begins training Sero as the two sit to meditate. Argyle tells him he does not need to learn about using his fists or other brute techniques. He continues to teach Sero a few breathing techniques to help him tap into his inner strength. Sero follows his instructions while thinking about reuniting with Lucas. Argyle tells him to continue breathing until he enters his inner self. Sero continues to practice his breathing, and suddenly he finds himself in a dark, empty abyss. He frantically calls out to Argyle but gets no response. He cannot seem to figure out where he is or how he got there. Suddenly, he hears Argyle's voice but does not see him. Sero is terrified and complains to Argyle, who tells him to chill, assuring him that he is beside him. Sero is surprised when he learns from Argyle that this is his inner self. Argyle explains that understanding the darkness within it is the only way for him to get stronger. Since this is his first time, Argyle tells him to take only one step forward today. Sero takes a step and suddenly sees a happy memory of his family, which makes him cry. Argyle calls out to him, trying to pull him back out, and tells Sero to stop looking down and focus on his breathing. Even though he finds it difficult to do, Sero tries to follow his instructions. He soon finds himself losing consciousness, and then he is suddenly pulled back to reality. Argyle commends him, saying he did a good job for a first-timer. He reminds Sero that his special blood will become his strongest weapon. Sero is stunned when he sees the slight transformation on his hands. After the lecture, Argyle announces mealtime, which Sero is really not looking forward to. Moments later, Margun gives them grilled monster meat, and Argyle thanks him. Sero is relieved he does not have to eat slimy insects. While eating, Sero sees a group of guys outside and wonders why they are not eating. Argyle tells him to ignore them, stating that they have their own methods. Rosna soon struts in like an ostrich, telling Margun to bring something out. Margun is annoyed and tells her to tone it down. Apparently, they are contributing to something that was initially agreed upon. Rosna notices Argyle and is surprised he is still alive. Margun's men then pull out about 4 corpses from their team who died hunting in the corridor yesterday. Margun offers them to Rosna, who is happy that they get to feast. She boasts that only 2 died from her camp. Sero is shocked when he realizes they eat the corpses, and Argyle proudly informs him that it is common in solitude. Realizing this is what he ate earlier, Sero almost vomits, but Argyle stops him, explaining that what they ate earlier was truly monster meat. Meanwhile, Rosna and her crew head back excitedly with 2 corpses to have a meat party. Margun tells Argyle to rest while they leave to feast as well. He departs with his men, hauling the remaining 2 bodies, also excited about the meat party. After they leave, Argyle tells Sero to eat monster meat or insects, but never dead prisoners' meat. Sero, happy to hear this, quickly agrees. After a while, a group of brutes with an upside-down cross on their necks returns to the cell, chattering about how they destroyed some Class 1 prisoners. These guys are from Blademaster Beckham's circle. They quickly make way as Beckham steps into the room. Margun also arrives and asks Beckham if he has any harvest from the hunt. Beckham says yes, offering to share it with him. Argyle is also at the scene, and Margun informs him that Beckham is willing to share his loot. Argyle wonders why they are all chummy with each other. Margun explains that Beckham acts all namaste because he wants to be seen as magnanimous and superior to others. He tells Argyle that Beckham would like to speak with him and offers to accompany him. Sero, on the other hand, smells blood when he sees Beckham. Argyle tells Sero to head back while he chats with Beckham. Sero is scared to return alone, so Margun offers to assign a few men to protect him. The 2 guys assigned to Sero are not happy to be babysitting while others feast on Beckham's loot. They start drooling at the thought of feasting on Sero's tender meat, leaving him terrified. The other man, trying to resist the temptation, tells the bald dude to cut it out or they might end up on Rosna's dinner table. While they are discussing, Sero starts feeling lonely and scared. He wonders if he can become strong like Argyle. The only thing keeping him company is the thought of his earlier conversation with Argyle. They had been discussing Argyle's strength, and Sero says he has never met anyone as strong as Argyle. He wonders if Argyle is even human, and Argyle affirms that he is. Sero is not quite convinced and asks Argyle if he can use ki or mana. Argyle says he does not use mana, but can handle ki to some extent. Sero is stunned to hear this, and with so many questions, asks Argyle about his age and hobbies. Argyle says he is 88 years old and likes taking walks in the corridors. Sero then asks about his friends, and Argyle says he has a few, as he thinks about his bear friend and a girl with silver blue hair. Sero excitedly asks why he came to Solitude, and for a moment Argyle freezes, remembering it was because his wife died. Sero is shocked to hear this, and Argyle promises to tell him about it another time. Sero is suddenly pulled out of his thoughts by the sound of a whip wreaking havoc. He watches in shock as the whip wraps around one of his guards, crushing him. After taking out the guards, Rosna notices that Argyle is missing and sees Sero cowering on the floor like a wet puppy. He is terrified and wonders what to do since Argyle is not with him. Sero is still wondering what to do when Rosna, like a creepy Sasang fan, commands him to come to her. After whipping Sero for a while without any reaction, Rosna notices his improved endurance, without any convulsions like yesterday. Sero cries out in pain, telling her to stop, and threatening that something terrible will happen if she continues to hurt him. Rosna casually dismisses him because she feels he would only end up trembling, losing his mind like yesterday. She tells him to hurry up and show her what he is capable of because she is getting bored. Suddenly, Sero transforms, which doesn't faze her, but she is even excited at the thought of having a new pet. As she tries to whip him again, Sero charges in to attack her, but her whip traps his leg, slamming him to the ground. From the little action, Rosna is excited and tells him to bark like a little puppy. As she watches Sero lie helplessly on the floor, Rosna wonders how Argyle would react when he returns. Meanwhile, Argyle sits around to chat with Margon and Beckham. While eating, Beckham asks Argyle why he has no class number written on his neck. Argyle explains that he has been in Solitude for a long time, and back then, they didn't assign class numbers. This makes Beckham decide to call him Senior. Margon praises Argyle, saying he fought off jungle natives alone. Argyle humbly turns down the praises, claiming that he is now just a boring old geezer. Beckham is unconvinced because this is his first time seeing someone without class numbers. Also, he finds it suspicious that one old man fought jungle natives alone and survived. Beckham then imagines himself attacking Argyle to test his strength, but as usual, Argyle senses this, and the air around them tenses up. Even Margon feels the sudden chill in the room, but he dismisses it as the feeling of hunger. Argyle soon excuses himself to leave, and Margon tells him to eat more, but he explains that he needs to check on Sero. He also takes some monster meat from the loot. After they leave, Beckham marvels at the fact that Argyle showed no reaction when hit with his killing intent. Margon is the only one who didn't decipher Beckham's killing intent. With a threatening look in his eyes, Beckham promises to remember the old man. Elsewhere, Sero has been captured, and Rosna's minions congratulate her on her new pet. They surround her as she watches Sero like a cute little chihuahua. Rosna is feeling ecstatic at the thought of Sero struggling while she flays him later. Sero is too weak to shout and just lies still like an animal waiting to be slaughtered. He makes up his mind to live the rest of his life as a pet, hoping to see his big brother one day. Rosna is annoyed when two dudes interrupt her, reporting that Argyle is in their camp. She is pleased that he came to her on his own. On hearing this news, Sero suddenly remembers he has an old man backing him. The minions fearfully announce that Argyle came with Margon and his whole crew. Rosna steps out to see them, and Margon tells her she stepped on the wrong foot. Still feeling smug, she calls him a leech, relying on an old geezer, and then challenges Margon to fight her. Margon threatens her not to speak disrespectfully to the old man, but Argyle tells him to chill and calmly tells Rosna to return Sero. Rosna coyly refuses, saying she caught him, so the pet is hers. She goes further to blame him for not protecting the boy properly. She also calls Sero a rare, cute jewel and refuses to part with him. Argyle is irritated by her creepy behavior and calls her a cougar, but she doesn't hear him. He tells her she is naive and ignorant for taking the child without knowing his importance. He then threatens that she will surely die for capturing Sero. Rosna doesn't believe his hullabaloo and calls it a bluff. Margon offers to finish Rosna off while Argyle rescues the boy, but Argyle casually tells him to back off and turns to leave, leaving him confused. While heading back, Argyle contemplates rescuing Sero slowly. Apparently, he is not worried because they wouldn't be able to kill Sero. Argyle reasons that the merchandise should be safe since the prison warden is watching. Suddenly, Argyle senses a presence around him, and he quickly looks around. It turns out to be one of his friends, the silver-haired girl, whom he told Sero about earlier. Suddenly, a very pretty celestial-looking lady named Alice appears floating in the air and shrouded in baby blue light. He asks her if she spotted him while passing through. Alice tells him she wasn't just passing by. She had sensed the intense atmosphere when he went to demand Sero's return, so she decided to stop by. She then asks about his health, and Argyle says he is worried because of the short time given to him. Alice offers to help him clean up the troublesome demon worshipper underlings in the cell, meaning Rosna and her bunch of misfits. However, Argyle declines her help because he fears Sero might be collateral damage if she gets involved. Alice says Sero must be lucky to be protected by Argyle. She backs down, deciding not to get involved since the level of crazies in that cell is not a problem for Argyle. Since she is going to see her sister, Argyle tells Alice to send his regards. She blushes, saying that her sister would be happy to hear from him. Still floating, Alice hugs Argyle and reminds him to call her if he ever needs help, as she calls him their benefactor. After she disappears, Argyle reminds himself not to borrow a child's help, no matter how bad it gets. As he stands alone in the corridor, he contemplates how good he used to be at facing everything head-on in the old days. Suddenly, electricity surges from his ankle and wrist device, signaling it was time for the no-standing rule. Throughout the cell, everyone else lies down to sleep except Argyle, who is still covered in electric current. While passing through everyone's camp, he makes up his mind to stop deliberately holding back his strength. Finally, he ends up in Rosna's circle, and amidst the current, Argyle takes out his dagger, preparing to take a detour. In a dream, Rosna recalls her past when she was still just an ordinary Class 3 prisoner. Her life was quite pitiful until she met a terrifying demon lord and instinctively knew she shouldn't make eye contact with him, so she quickly fell at his feet with her head bowed. That demon's authority helped her as she swiftly climbed the ranks to her current position as a hot badass leader. Suddenly, she is pulled out of dreamland by someone screaming her name. Rosna is annoyed and fires back at the insolent guy for disturbing her sleep, threatening to flay him if his reason wasn't worthwhile. The guy apologizes, sweating all over as he informs her that most of her minions have been killed, and he found out when he woke up this morning. She finds it unbelievable because everyone sleeps at the same time due to the no-standing rule. She quickly heads out with a few remaining guys to check it out. Rosna is shocked when she sees the sight of her guys lying in a pool of their own blood, and out of 80 people in her camp, 40 died. While inspecting the scene, one of the guys points out that they were killed using an awl, a small pointed tool used for piercing holes. Rosna says she has never seen anyone use that kind of weapon in the cell. She suddenly remembers her pet prisoner, Sero, and angrily dashes off to find him. Arriving in his cell, she finds it empty and deduces it must be Argyle's doing. Feeling quite confident, she calls on the rest of her crew, telling them that it is time to hunt. Meanwhile, back in their cell, Sero wakes up and after gulping down a bottle of water, he is surprised to see Argyle. Argyle checks on him and Sero thanks him for saving his life again. He explains that this experience has made him want to become stronger so he can protect himself. Sero then pleads with Argyle to help him bulk up. Margon soon interrupts them and is surprised to see Sero back already. Argyle informs him that he brought him back and asks if Beckham will be at the morning roll call. He explains that he wants the three of them to discuss something, which piques Margon's interest. Outside, Rosna storms in with her minions and stands opposite, facing Argyle, Beckham, Margon, and their respective teams. While Argyle is having a private conversation with Margon and Beckham, Rosna calls out, challenging Argyle to face her. Margon warns her to stop asking for trouble, but she tells him to butt out. She angrily asks Argyle if he took out her crew and stole her pet puppy. She hounds him for an answer, threatening to have him for dinner. Argyle ignores her, calmly calling her a mosquito, which annoys her. Rosna pretends not to hear him, so Argyle loudly repeats himself, calling her a gong, leaving Rosna fuming with anger. However, they all ignore her and return to their conversation as Argyle asks the two their thoughts on his proposal. Rosna asks about the proposal, but they act like she doesn't exist. Margon agrees to it, and Beckham also agrees, saying it was worth it, even though there might be casualties. He reasons that food is becoming scarce even in the corridors. After hearing from them, Argyle turns to tell Rosna about his proposal. He explains that they want to hold a feast using her dead 40 subordinates, and then capture the remaining 60 in her team alive. Rosna is scared shitless after hearing his proposal, and realizes she was in soup because the power balance in the cell has collapsed. Apparently, each of the three factions has 100 people in it, and this was done to maintain balance in the cell. However, because of the dead 40 from her camp, Rosna was now the sitting duck. With Margon and Beckham still having 100 people, she doesn't stand a chance against them if they join forces. The thought of this power gap terrifies Rosna, and soon her worst fear begins as the other two unite against her in a bloody battle. Watching them rush towards her crew scares Rosna, and she comes face to face with her demons. She freezes, not knowing how to win against them. Argyle stands in the middle observing the bloodbath in the cell from all the clashing. Margon and Beckham's crew completely overpowers Rosna's team, annihilating them like sheep. The bloody battle continues, and Rosna is soon drawn into it as she fiercely fights for her life. Unfortunately, it is not enough, and soon she is surrounded by a horde of opponents who skewer her multiple times. Just like that, Rosna reaches the end of her rope and perishes. After watching her downfall from afar, Argyle silently reminds her about the promise of her death earlier when he asked her to return Sero. Argyle leaves the cell amidst the fighting and heads to Rosna's rendezvous point with her master. There he finds the glowing orb and realizes it is a life force orb. He grabs it, knowing she has been using it to collect life force from the cell. Argyle then sucks the energy out of the orb into his own body. He is soon covered in the red aura contained in the orb. Argyle contemplates his meeting with the warden and says that handling troublesome things like these would surely delay his meeting. As he stares at the orb, Argyle calls out to the powerful dude behind the orb, named Darkus. He knows Darkus is listening, and he was the one who sent Saddle, who was linked to Decapitator. He boasts about messing with Saddle's link and hopes he hasn't turned into a loony because of it. Argyle finally warns Darkus to stop pursuing him, or he will make him regret it. On the other side, Darkus is also watching Argyle from another orb and calls him a chatterbox. Feeling smug, he asks if Argyle is scared of him. Argyle boldly says he doesn't fear trash like him. He then crushes the orb, and as he does, he warns Darkus just like he warned Rosna, saying he will die if he continues to chase him. After the stern warning, Argyle finally crushes the orb into tiny bits. A while later, in cell number 6, 879, Vampire King Endurus, a Class 8 prisoner, sits in his cell, enjoying a moment of calm while savoring a cup of premium Cabernet Sauvignon hemoglobin. Darkus, Demon Worshipper Legion commander and fellow Class 8 prisoner, pushes his way inside without warning, shattering his quiet moment. Endurus is irritated and threatens to turn him into a premium vintage wine. Darkus ignores the hostility and announces that he has something important to propose. Endurus grows more displeased and calls him a foolish oaf. But Darkus brushes past the insult and claims the proposal benefits Endurus as well, since they both serve the Void constellation. He gets down to business, asking Endurus for assistance in capturing Argal. Darkus explains that his favorite disciple has been ruined by Argal, so he wants revenge. Knowing that Darkus is not exactly Mr. Nice Guy either and will eventually devour his disciples, Endurus immediately rejects his request. He warns Darkus that Argal is a ticking time bomb, far too dangerous to control, and advises him to give up. His refusal enrages Darkus, who fumes, even tearing the cloth stitched to his mouth. Darkus warns Endurus that he will regret his choice and roars that he will capture Argal alone. Endurus ignores the outburst and merely wishes him luck. After Darkus storms out, Endurus mutters that he is an ignorant brat before returning to his drink, pondering how no one could actually capture Argal. He knows that any prisoner who has successfully climbed to a higher position keeps their ears to the ground and inevitably learns how terrifying the old man is. Although many prisoners have tried to capture him, no one understands why he has survived for decades in a shithole like Solitude, even though he is human. Endurus is clever and suspects there must be a reason, so he is not foolish enough to seek out trouble or risk his life chasing the impossible. Meanwhile, back in cell 3, 498, the brutal fight has ended, and the surviving members of the two circles are indulging in a chaotic feast on Rosna's fallen subordinates. According to one of Beckham's men, he told them they could eat until they could not possibly eat anymore. During the battle, each of the two opposing circles lost 20 members, while Rosna's group suffered 30 casualties, including Rosna herself. Her body is not spared as Margan tears it apart like filet mignon. While drinking raw plasma, a subordinate reports to Beckham that the rest of Rosna's team has been captured and secured. As they continue to feast, Margan expresses gratitude to Argal for helping eliminate the arrogant Rosna. Argal finds it revolting to watch Beckham drink blood like water, but Beckham insists it becomes enjoyable once one gets used to it. Noticing that Argal is not eating, they ask, and he simply says he has no appetite. Beckham admires Argal's skill at planning and executing bold schemes, impressed by his audacity. He invites Argal to join his circle, explaining that he wants to unite the lower-class prisoners so that they can easily overpower the mid-class prisoners during the upcoming release. Argal immediately refuses, claiming he is too old for games of power, but he offers to provide support from the sidelines. Margan also tries to invite him to join his own circle, but Argal shuts him down without hesitation. Rising to leave, he tells them that he has a child to babysit, which leaves both Beckham and Margan stunned and momentarily speechless. 6 days later, while preparing to enter his inner self, Sero asks Argal why he must walk through it. Argal explains that it is important to know what his heart truly desires so he can decide how to proceed. Once again, they begin the exercise, and Sero finds himself in darkness. He hears Argal's voice telling him to walk forward continuously, since it was his 8th time entering his inner self today. Although he does not understand why they must do this, Sero agrees. All he wants is for the old man to teach him to fight, but Argal has only been training his inner cultivation. Through the walk in his inner self, he is confronted by memories he would rather forget. Memories of how his family and home were torn apart, and how he had to part with people he loved. Sero prefers physical pain to the emotional torment of recalling these sad events. While walking through the horror, he tries to calm himself, reasoning that Argal must have a reason. Argal's voice interrupts his thought, reminding him never to look down in the darkness. Deciding to trust him, Sero agrees and continues to walk forward. Soon he reaches a cliff and calls out to Agal, but the old man tells him to keep moving forward. Sero is terrified and protests, but Argal firmly tells him to proceed if he wants to become strong. Although scared, Sero decides to move forward because he wants to get stronger and protect his loved ones. He takes several steps without looking down, and Argal reminds him not to look down, even though someone tries to talk to him. Suddenly, Sero stops hearing Argal's voice, and an icy fear grips him. A few meters from the cliff, he senses something moving at his feet. Just then, a voice emerges from a swirling purple light below, speaking with an eerie tone. It says it is sad that Sero has not called for it sooner. Confused and hesitant, Sero refuses to respond, but the voice continues relentlessly, claiming its people have suffered and insisting that Sero is responsible, blaming him for selfishness and the death that followed. Moments later, a three-eyed monster slowly rises from the light beneath him, towering and horrifying. Sero suddenly cannot breathe and cries out in pain, begging it to stop. Summoning courage, he finally looks at the monster. The creature, having lured him into looking down, lunges to devour him. Sero freezes, certain he is finished, when suddenly a strong hand grabs him, yanking him out of harm's way just in time. Back in reality, Sero takes a deep breath as he calms down from the terrifying ordeal. Shortly after, Argal praises him for confronting the darkness within. Sero notices his body has grown bigger. Seeing this, Argal decides it is time to fulfill Sero's heart's desire and challenges him to a fight to teach him how to use his fist. Before Sero can question him, Argal attacks him, and Sero dodges it. Sero is thrilled that he actually managed to dodge the old man's strike, but his excitement doesn't last as Argal's fist slams into his face. followed immediately by another, knocking the wind out of him. Gritting his teeth, Sero transforms and counters with a swift attack. Argyle only smirks, telling him that if he wants real strength, he must learn to trust his wild instincts. With a heavy blow, Argyle drives Sero into the ground, remarking that his power is impressive, but his movements are still far too clumsy. Sero continues to fight with determination, yet despite his effort, not a single one of his strikes manages to hit Argyle. Argyle advises him to stop overthinking every movement and to trust his instincts instead. Taking the advice, Sero shifts his mindset, and gradually, his attacks grow sharper and more focused. Argyle notices the change almost immediately and commends him. He notices that Sero's strikes were no longer focused on one part. Instead, they're spread out, targeting vulnerable points across Argyle's body, even his fingers. Argyle notes that Sero is finally tapping into his intuition and commends him for adapting so quickly. Soon, he jabs Sero with a powerful blow while teaching him the second method for skilled combat. Argyle then unleashes a series of swift blows, and Sero tries to defend himself, but Argyle's movements are too fast. Argyle tells him he must learn to take a hit, and without letting him rest, he continues hitting Sero while telling him that there is a vast difference between those who have experienced suffering and those who have yet to endure it. The relentless barrage of attacks continues, each strike heavier than the last, until finally Sero is knocked unconscious. Watching him sprawled on the floor, Argyle wonders if he has gone too far, so he decides to leave the third lesson for another day. While checking him, Argyle marvels at the fact that Sero has grown bigger during his combat experience, and the boy's talent exceeds his expectations. Watching the unconscious Sero, Argyle wonders how much he would grow and says he is looking forward to it. While he sleeps, Sero dreams about his happy childhood with his mom and dad. In one of the dreams, he feels lonely watching his father favor his older brother. Sero tells himself that his father didn't love him and cruelly abandoned him in solitude. Apparently, even with his daddy issues, Sero starts crying because he still wants to see his father no matter what. He wakes up from the dream with tears in his eyes. Argyle notices that his recovery is fast because he is a werewolf. Noticing his strange surroundings, Sero asks Argyle about it, and he tells him they are on the rooftop of a building inside the cell. He tells Sero to focus his sight and check out some prisoners in the distance. Sero looks ahead, but he doesn't see prisoners from that distance. He tries to complain but stops mid-sentence when his super sight activates, and he sees a bunch of prisoners sleeping, which confuses him. Wondering why they were sleeping, he asks Argyle about it. Sero is surprised when Argyle informs him that it is time to sleep because he is no longer affected by the no-standing rule. Argyle asks him how it feels to overcome the no-standing rule. He explains that the no-standing rule doesn't affect those who have faced the darkness within themselves. Sero is surprised that, just like the old man, he can now overcome the prison's regulations. Argyle is satisfied while watching him, because the merchandise was growing faster than expected. He plans to exchange it soon for drugs that can maintain his body. Argyle reasoned he had overextended his body for far too long, and it was now weakened. Apparently, he has been hiding for 60 years, but has now decided to end his seclusion. Thinking about his latest conquests, Necromancer Saddle, Whipwoman Rosna, and Demon Worshipper Leader Darkus, Argyle says it was inevitable to meet them since he has avoided so many people for so long. He also reasons that it was time to crush the necessary ones. Meanwhile, inside the cell, the prisoners prepare for the release. One of the more experienced dude warns the first-timers to stay alert, as no one knows the exact time it will begin. Another dude advises them not to take heavy baggage, or they risk running out of fuel during movement. Margan watches them intently, thinking about how it has survived in solitude for 3 years and has now understood his intuition. His intuition tells him that the release will likely happen today. He swings his bag over his shoulder, thinking how he has prepared as much as possible, and he hopes to skillfully get through the release. From the rooftop, Sero notices everyone getting busy packing and asks Argyle about it. Argyle tells him that it is release day, and Sero, not knowing what it means, asks him about it. Argyle explains that it is a system designed to make prisoners anticipate and prepare because many of them will be exterminated today. Sero is left with more questions, and he is stunned when the system appears just like it does during roll call. Argyle tells him that the release might start earlier than expected. Soon after appearing, the system announces that the release begins now, and as usual, the golden light appears, teleporting everyone to the lower corridors. Some of the first-timers are left stunned, realizing that because of the release, they have been teleported out of their cell. Argyle explains that during it, the system forcibly drives out prisoners from all cells into the corridors regardless of their class. He further explains, saying they must quickly return to the cells because the corridors are filled with dangerous beasts and high-class prisoners. Before Argyle can finish his sentence, the dangers he was just talking about show up, leaving Sero stunned. They turn to see a horde of ugly green goblins wildly rushing towards them. Sero is shocked and terrified at their numbers. But Argyle is unfazed and casually tells him to prepare to put their training into practice by experiencing real combat during release. Watching the horde of ugly, snarling green goblins rushing toward them, Argyle seems to be the only one genuinely excited. Some of the dudes from Margan and Beckham's circle quickly realize their escape route is blocked, so their only choice is to break through the goblin horde. Sero shifts into his werewolf form, preparing to fight as the goblins close in on them. Argyle brandishes his favorite weapon and urges him to fight with utter desperation if he wants to survive. Moments later, a fierce, chaotic battle breaks out in the corridor between the goblins and the prisoners. Sero goes feral as he tears the goblins apart with his claws, every motion guided by Argyle's teachings to follow his instinct. Following his advice to survive at all costs, he rips them apart like beef. For a brief, terrifying moment, Sero feels unstoppable, but suddenly, he freezes when his eyes catch a tiny goblin child cowering in a corner. That moment of hesitation almost costs him his life as he realizes too late that it was an ambush. Soon, two other goblins catch him off guard as they grab him from behind, and one of them stabs him while the goblin child smiles wickedly and happily stabs him. Now fatally wounded, Sero braces for the worst possible outcome, but fortunately, Argyle intervenes, cutting through the attackers and saving his life. Once the danger passes, he gives Sero another important lesson, telling him that he must get used to killing and must never hesitate. While Sero checks out his wound, Argyle continues explaining that a moment of hesitation will cost him his life, and it is a kill or be killed world in Solitude. He advises Sero to shut off his emotions because they are a liability and just kill to survive. Before they can finish the lecture, more goblins surge towards them, and Sero fiercely jumps into action. As he strikes, Argyle's voice cuts through the chaos, telling him not to focus on their numbers but on their strength, since combat abilities differ greatly even among prisoners of the same class. According to him, goblins are so weak and useless that they are not even worth assigning a class. Meanwhile, Margan and Beckham are having a field day, cutting through the goblins with ease. After clearing out the horde of goblins, they pause and notice two paths ahead. Argyle asks them which way they plan to take, and Margan advises that they take the wide path because it's easier to prepare for an attack. However, Beckham disagrees, citing that a wider path means more monsters can appear, but the narrow path might help them avoid the bigger troubles. Margan argues with him, explaining that strong monsters guard narrow places. Argyle quietly watches them as they continue to bicker about who is more experienced with corridor business. Argyle quietly says both of them are wrong, and he tells Sero to follow him when he runs. At first, Sero is confused and has no time to process the request as Argyle dashes forward. Without hesitating, Sero follows closely behind him. Moments later, Margan and Beckham stop arguing as they notice that Argyle is long gone. After running for a while, Sero is tired and stops, asking the old man to wait. He then asks Argyle why they separated from the group, stating that it might be better to stick together in large numbers. However, Argyle disagrees, explaining that staying grouped makes them easier targets. Argyle says searching for cells separately is their best chance at survival. He feels Beckham and Margan are foolish to stick together while also carrying their whole crew along. He explains that their sudden kinship is quite strange. Sero also finds it strange because Beckham and Margan were previously at each other's throats. Argyle explains that he didn't see fear in their faces, which is an emotion one must never forget in Solitude. Sero also finds it sus and asks if something is behind their attitude, but Argyle doesn't know either. Suddenly, they hear footsteps as Beckham and his crew catch up with them. Beckham looks eerily sus as he stares at them, asking why they left abruptly. Argyle asks him about Margan, and he responds, saying they had to separate since they couldn't see eye to eye. He then invites Argyle and Sero to join him and head back to the cell. Argyle is fed up with his suspicious attitude and tells him to drop the terrible acting. He explains that he already saw through Beckham's true identity the first time they sat down to eat together, especially because of how easily he drank blood earlier. Argyle asks him if he serves Vampire King, Endurus, and Beckham grins wickedly, finally showing his fangs and asks Argyle to quietly follow him. Apparently, Endurus told Beckham to escort Argyle respectfully, however Argyle bluntly refuses, saying Endurus can come to him directly if he wants to meet. Beckham flashes his fangs as he grins wickedly, calling Argyle an insolent old geezer. Refusing to be disrespected, Beckham confidently draws his sword and threatens to end him, smugly boasting that he wouldn't mind breaking a few of his bones. Sero is also shocked when he sees Beckham and his goons transform into terrifying vampires. He then recalls that this is why he smelled blood when he first met Beckham, because he was actually a vampire in disguise. As the vampires prepare to attack, Sero also transforms into his werewolf form. Beckham is surprised by the transformation, realizing that is why Argyle kept the kid close. However, this doesn't faze him, and he refuses to back down. Argyle asks him if Sero looks like an ordinary werewolf. Apparently, Sero's brother Lucas is a werewolf, but Sero is a pure-breed lycanthrope and is different from the usual werewolf because of his special blood. While Argyle is giving them the basics, Sero goes through another transformation. Watching his terrifying growth, Argyle is amazed by his talent and the speed of his growth, even without stimulation. Brandishing his weapon, Argyle tells Sero to take on Beckham while he handles his minions. Without wasting any moment, Sero leaps forward, and Beckham does the same while feeling overly confident because he feels Sero is not worthy of being his opponent. However, he gets a rude awakening when Sero moves at the speed of light and successfully dodges his attacks. Beckham is annoyed and throws curses at him, realizing that he underestimated the boy. Argyle, meanwhile, easily cuts through the dumb minions. To distract them, he slashes his hands and sprinkles the blood in the air. Like moths to a flame, the dumb fools are distracted by the smell of blood, and like a pack of hungry lions, they rush towards it to taste the sweet blood, even pushing each other. Seeing that they fell for his trap, Argyle wastes no time and completely exterminates them, while Beckham watches them in regret. Beckham goes back to his fight with Sero, but the fragrance of Argyle's blood is too strong. He reasons that it must be why their leader wanted to capture him. Beckham is excited by the smell and vows to take some of it for himself after handling Sero. He grows impatient and lunges towards Sero with his blade, and after a while, Beckham is excited as he successfully lands a hit on his arm. But to his shock, Sero's arm starts reattaching itself, leaving Beckham questioning his life choices. Sero is pissed and forcefully punches him, but Beckham isn't surprised. He continues to be smug, talking shit. But to his utter horror, Argyle takes him out from behind. Beckham can't believe it. As his life flashes before his eyes, he wonders how Argyle already took out all 80 of his minions. He wasn't paying attention to Argyle because he thought he would be too busy with the boys. In the moment before giving up the ghost, Beckham finally realizes he was never a match for the old man. After taking out Beckham, Argyle praises Sero for how much he has improved. Just 3 weeks ago, during the fight with the fire-breathing dragons and then Rosna, he could not even be compared to a mutt. But now he is much stronger, faster, and bigger. Sero is thrilled as he finally knows what it feels like to fight. As he returns to his human form, Argyle tells him he still needs to get better. Seeing that they have wasted a lot of time, Argyle tells him they need to hurry back to their cell. Sero pulls off a shirt from one of the corpses, saying he needs to quickly freshen up. Elsewhere, 3 women dressed as maids apologize to Endurus for being late due to the release, and he asks them to get back to work. Suddenly, he feels the severed connection between himself and Beckham, making him realize that Beckham didn't listen to him, and now Argyle has taken him out. Endurus regrets not being able to communicate with telepathy due to the ongoing release. He vows to be more mindful of etiquette when it comes to Argyle, and he looks forward to having tea. Meanwhile, far away in another corridor, 3 cloaked figures pant tiredly after taking out a giant ogre. They take off their cloaks, revealing Huluk, Menlock, and Lucas, Sero's brother, all Class 2 prisoners. Menlock suggests they grill some ogre meat, and Lucas agrees with him. He suggests eating some and wrapping a little for their journey since returning to the cell is their top priority. Moments later, they finish eating and pack up to leave. While leaving, Lucas worries about Sero and hopes he is with Argyle. With determination, he vows to stay alive and meet up with his brother. Meanwhile, Sero is seen fighting off a couple of prisoners. He asks Argyle who they are and wonders why they've been attacking relentlessly. Argyle explains that they are black magic users from the Demon Worshippers organization, and they are after him. Sero asks why, and Argyle says he had a falling out with their boss. After returning to his human form, Argyle tells him they need to hurry back before they run into Darkus because he commands hundreds of mid-class prisoners, which could be troublesome for them to handle. As they turn to leave, Argyle and Sero feel some unpleasant presence ahead of them. Argyle informs him that it is a ghost named Goose. Soon, a gory-looking giant drooling all over appears in front of them. Argyle tells Sero to fight it, but Sero is scared and finds it too intimidating. Argyle assures him that it shouldn't be a problem for him, even though Goose is strong. Still feeling unsure, Sero transforms and dashes forward, choosing to believe Argyle's word. Sero is stunned when he easily slams his fist into the monster's face, and this gives him hope that he can win, but the monster counters and strikes him back. The power of the punch stuns Sero as he crashes to the ground. Argyle quietly watches them, thinking that one of the reasons prisoners die in the corridors when encountering ghosts is because they lack combat ability. But the most important reason is that ghosts emit an ominous fear aura. Apparently, all ghosts are Class 4 and above. That is why prisoners below that class are crushed by fear and are annihilated. But this doesn't include those who have faced the darkness within, just like Sero. Sero continues striking Goose, but he is soon overwhelmed because according to Argyle, he lacks the innate ability to ultimately defeat the monster. Sero helplessly sits on the ground, looking utterly defeated. Suddenly, blue lights fill the room and icicles appear out of thin air, signaling another presence. As the monster lunges for Argyle, he orders the person to strike, revealing his friend Alice, as she uses her ice ability to freeze the monster. This is the kind of inherent ability Argyle was talking about. After freezing Goose, Alice asks Argyle about his time during release, and he says there were some troublesome vermin, but he handled them. He asks about her sister, and she informs him that she conveyed his regards to her. Alice also informs him that her sister was quite pleased to hear from him. Without even lifting a finger, Alice splices the frozen monster into 2. From the corner, Sero watches in surprise, wondering who she is and how she defeated the ghost in one hit. He also wonders how she created ice out of thin air and notes that she seems close to Argyle. After returning to normal, Sero thanks her for saving him, but Alice ignores him, asking Argyle to help her find her cell. She walks away holding Argyle as Sero is left behind, feeling left out, and it makes him wonder if she doesn't like him. Somewhere else, a Class 5 demon worshipper and black magic swordsman, Solverin, is in one of the corridors searching for something with her steel-faced minions. She is frustrated and complains about her dumb partner, Saddle, and soon hits him in the face, calling him trash. She asks about his severed link from Decapitator caused by Argyle. Solverin also tells him he should have just self-destructed instead of going insane. She wants to get rid of him, but can't since she was paired with him on Darkus's command, so she decides to look forward to her reward after succeeding. Suddenly, she freezes, realizing that a large number of her linked subordinates have just been wiped out. She had told them to send a signal if they ran into the old man, but the moment they did, the link was severed because they were killed. Solverin is excited that she has finally found Argyle and beckons to her team to follow her. She tells them to hurry, not wanting someone else to steal her thunder as she plans to take him down first. Meanwhile, after taking down Solverin's goons, Alice tells Argyle that she has been seeing a lot of black magic users today. She explains that she ran into a swarm of them on her way, and she saw them in groups during release. As they discuss, Sero stands in a corner watching them and quietly wondering about Alice's strength and her relationship to the old man. He wonders if he can become like her, and so he musters the courage to speak to her. Sero asks her about her relationship with Argyle and also asks how she became powerful. Alice turns to stare at his anxious gaze and wonders if it is rivalry brewing out of jealousy because of the old man's attention. She also notes that she was once just like him, pining for Argyl's attention. However, she has come to learn that he treats everyone the same. Alice then answers Sero, saying she met Argyl 7 years ago when she came to Solitude with her sister. They were falsely accused of terminating their parents. Just when they were about to give up due to the harsh reality of Solitude, Argyl, like a knight in shining armor, saved them and helped them go to the arena. Sero is curious about the arena, but Alice ignores his question. She stops talking and, sensing danger, calls out to Argyl, who quickly understands what she means. Sero soon figures it out by himself as he is hit by a similar feeling that he had sensed from the monster, Goose. Moments later, Solverin and her goons come face to face with them. She orders her backup to capture Argyl, and they immediately get into action with their black magic. Alice tells Argyl to sit back and relax, insisting that she will handle them herself because she wants to show him how much she has grown. The black magic users launch a burst of magic flame at her, but Alice meets it calmly, countering with a single, precise blast that scatters them all. Argyl is impressed as he watches his protege moving with so much power and control. He marvels at how time passed so quickly because it doesn't feel that long ago when he first met the two sisters, crying and clinging to each other for comfort. Without even breaking a sweat, Alice continues to dominate the battlefield. Argyl mutters to himself that she has grown quite admirably, as every motion reflects her progress. To show off a bit more, Alice transforms into her new digs, the Snowflower armor. The transformation is breathtaking, leaving even the black magic users momentarily stunned. As she transforms, she wonders why Argyl saved them, but that question doesn't matter to her anymore. Now, her focus is on the fight and the chance to impress Argyl. Alice's excitement surges as she senses more opponents gathering. This is the perfect opportunity to show off further and prove herself in front of Argyl. Meanwhile, Sero watches in awe, stunned by her transformation and the display of ice surrounding her, so he asks Argyl about her ability. Argyl explains that she can handle ice, and it is a type of ability that manipulates attributes. He further explains that there are 7 attributes: light, dark, lightning, wind, fire, water, and earth, and Alice has developed her water attribute. He also adds that the monster, which Sero faced earlier, had the dark attribute. His explanation only leaves Sero even more curious than before. Suddenly, the situation turns even more troublesome than Argyl expected as Decapitator is brought into the scene. While still fighting off the small fry, Alice is also stunned by the 2 giant headcutters' appearance, which leaves her wondering how they were summoned because Solitude monsters are not easily summoned. They require certain special talents to summon them, just like renowned puppeteer Saddle. Just then, Argyl realizes that Saddle is pulling the strings behind the scenes, and even though he became a bit useless due to their last battle, his abilities have been retained. He quickly instructs Sero to stand in front of him, and although confused, Sero asks him why. Argyl explains that fighting the black magic users and 2 decapitators might be a bit too much, so he plans to help Sero by linking with him. Argyl crosses his hands together over Sero's head, and after a few movements, a bright light appears as he starts linking with him. Linking is a type of telepathy, but Argyl can only maintain it for about 10 minutes. During the linking, Sero is surprised that he can hear Argyl's voice in his head. While they are still on it, one of the decapitators lunges forward towards them. From their telepathic link, Argyl tells Sero that his stamina might not keep up, and he might also faint, so he should take the opportunity to learn. They are soon forced into a fierce battle with one of the decapitators. While fighting, Sero wonders what he is supposed to learn. Through their link, he learns that Argyl will try to forcefully draw out his attribute even though it is a bit too early. Sero is surprised, and for a moment he is distracted, but Argyl's voice pulls him back into the game, telling him to duck left. Although he doesn't respond in time, Sero suffers a blow, but his head is at least spared from being chopped off. While Sero faces off against one decapitator, Alice is busy trying to take down the other one. From how easily she deals at several hits, Decapitator seems to be no match for Alice. However, she soon notices more black magic users gathering in the distance, which may complicate things. Although she wants to end things quickly by taking down Decapitator's controller, Saddle, the black magic users swarming in make it more difficult for her to get close to him. Alice decides to put on hold attacking Decapitator, and deciding to handle the vermin first, she swiftly begins to annihilate the black magic users. She plans to clear them out to create an easy path to Saddle. Sero, on the other hand, is still maneuvering through Decapitator's attacks, but he stops because he sees a purple light emitting from it. Whatever this is has piqued his curiosity for a while now, and Sero freezes, realizing he can sense it from within Decapitator and also himself. He further explores the feeling and realizes he can sense Decapitator's attack intent, trajectory, and attack direction. Basically, like having foresight, Sero can dodge all its attacks following these senses, and just like that, he becomes invincible, dodging Decapitator's attacks before they hit. Argyl notices that and notes that Sero's attribute is wind, which gives him recognition and sensing abilities over a wide range. As Sero continues to harness this ability against Decapitator, Argyl states that it is the perfect attribute for him. Meanwhile, Solverin is beginning to grow weary of the situation because she notices that even with 2 monsters and a bunch of small fry, Alice is still a total machine. Solverin has heard about her abilities and also about her sister, but this is her first time seeing Alice in person. Although Darkus warned her that the mission might be troublesome, she didn't expect this much trouble. She decides to help, but freezes when she notices that Argyl, who was just fighting a moment ago, has vanished. She frantically searches for him through the chaotic battlefield but couldn't find him, making her wonder if he had run away. Suddenly, Argyle quietly attacks her from behind. As she staggers, almost hitting the ground, Solverin quickly steadies her legs, preventing a fall. She then commends him for being so sneaky, saying she didn't even notice his movement until he got close. Solverin prepares to fight him and summons her powered digs, suffering armor, which appears, covering her like a ninja. While she is transforming, Argyle takes the opportunity to go after Saddle, but Solverin blocks the attack and tells Argyle that she was already expecting him to make that move. Argyle is impressed that she can predict his move and also withstand his attack. Solverin tells him she is also impressed by his power and asks him why Darkus is obsessed with him. Argyle says he doesn't get it either and tells her to ask him directly. Solverin finds him even more interesting, and as she pulls out her sword, she regrets taking the mission and says she should have quit black magic training a long time ago, taking the opportunity to wander outside instead and meet interesting people like Argyle. Argyle, preparing to fight, tells her he wouldn't recommend being a wanderer. Sero, on the other hand, is still embroiled in a fierce battle with one of the decapitators, and despite all its attacks, he manages to dodge them because of his wind attribute. Soon, Sero gains the upper hand and finally lands several blows on Decapitator, swiftly clawing at it. However, after dealing a few more hits, he soon notices that Decapitator's body is too sturdy. He can dodge its attacks easily, but dealing damage proves a problem, so he stops to strategize his next move. While thinking, he hears Argyle's voice in his head telling him not to overdo it because Decapitator's dark attribute makes it impossible for Sero's current ability to have any effect on it. Since his abilities are still inadequate, Sero wonders what he is supposed to do, and Argyle instructs him to keep the monster busy away from Alice. His job is to continue dodging attacks and holding it back while Argyle handles the rest. After getting his directives, Sero leaps into action and tries his best to keep Decapitator away from Alice. In the meantime, Argyle continues to clash with Solverin, who soon notices that Argyle is a total beast and she is no match for him. From his movements, she is amazed by how fast an old man like him moves and wonders if he is an Aura Knight, because knights trained with mana can age slowly, and just like Argyle, they possess superhuman strength. However, she dismisses the thought because she can't sense any mana power emanating from him. While their fight continues, Solverin scoffs smugly when she sees his tiny weapon and calls it a kebab skewer. As she confidently raises her mighty sword, she laughs, saying even a cat can scratch her armor better than his Princess Skewer. Unfortunately, before her sentence can register, Argyle uses said Princess Skewer to break her Excalibur sword while also slicing through her armor like a kebab at the same time. Solverin is left in shock, and can't believe that her dark magic armor was torn apart by a pink skewer. This leaves her wondering if Argyle also possesses the dark attribute. After losing an arm in the battle, Solverin tries to sense any trace of dark attributes within Argyle, yet she finds nothing. This leads her to suspect that his strange weapon is far from ordinary. Refusing to give up, she repairs her arm, buffs up her armor, and resolves to avoid close combat with him. The transformation also restores her sword, and she quickly launches an assault on Argyle while maintaining her distance. As she fires her measly ranged attacks, Solverin can't believe that a renowned black magic swordswoman like herself has been reduced to desperation by an old geezer. Watching Argyle casually breeze through her attacks without breaking a sweat makes her question his origin. Then, suddenly, she freezes, and a cold wave of terror grips her as his presence swells, radiating a horrifying aura that shakes her to the core. Overwhelmed, Solverin decides she must resort to the ultimate measure, even sacrificing herself if it means taking Argyle down. She summons a forbidden dark magic that grows in power through sacrifices. To strengthen the spell further, she uses Saddle's life as the offering. Though she worries the ghost will cease functioning once their controller is dead, she no longer cares, as she is moments away from becoming nothing more than meat herself. As soon as Saddle dies, the two decapitators collapse lifelessly, leaving Sero and Alice stunned. Sero doesn't understand what happened, but he's relieved to finally be safe. Meanwhile, the sacrifice causes Solverin's power to spike. Alice watches from afar, hoping Argyle will win, whispering for him not to get hurt. With her strength at its peak, Solverin summons the surrounding darkness and commands it to annihilate her chosen enemy, Argyle. She points at him, and a surge of dark purple flames erupts, rushing towards him, and a deadly blast erupts in his direction. Satisfied, Solverin is pleased with herself, hoping that the old man must have been barbecued. But to her disbelief, Argyle steps out calmly, completely unscathed, with strange blue lines glowing across his face. He commends her impressive talent, though he adds that she is foolishly reckless for offering her soul to demons through such dangerous black magic. Refusing to accept defeat, Solverin launches another barrage of attacks, even as Argyle warns her that because of the black magic, her soul will soon become food for the Void Constellation. Growing bored of her desperate, mosquito-like attacks, Argyle finally decides to end the fight. As his towering presence looms behind her, Solverin collapses to her knees in utter despair. She cannot comprehend how Argyle is immune to all her black magic tricks. With her countless questions still unanswered, Argyle raises his weapon, effortlessly disengaging her head from her armored body. When the battle ends, he goes to check on Sero and Alice, ensuring they're unharmed. Alice, also worried, asks if he himself is all right, and Argyle reassures her that he is, but quickly notices that she isn't in great condition. Sero, now back in human form, is drenched in sweat, tired from all the jumping around. Argyle urges them to leave at once before yet another troublesome situation finds them. Alice agrees and supports Sero as they prepare to move. As they leave, someone who seems to know Argyle watches them from a distance, impressed by him. Seeing the strange man and his group approaching, Alice instinctively prepares for a confrontation, but Argyle calmly tells her to stand down, assuring her that these newcomers are not here to cause trouble. He steps forward to greet the man, named Iobe, and from their exchange, Alice realizes they are old acquaintances. As the two speak, she studies their clothing, slowly realizing that they are fanatics devoted to the 11 constellations, including love, faith, and hope. Ironically, they are a group that purifies through the massacre of any heretics. Alice finds their hypocrisy irritating and is even more pissed when she sees Iobe smiling like a saint. She wonders how many prisoners he has killed under the guise of peace. With the same gentle smile on his face, Iobe informs Argyle that he has been cleansing the filthy demon worshippers since release day. Argyle replies that he has already cleared this area, and Iobe sincerely thanks him for aiding their cause. Alice is stunned when Iobe bows deeply to Argyle, especially since Iobe is a Class 6 prisoner. It dawns on her that Argyle's connections and influence stretch further than she ever imagined. Moments later, Iobe's subordinates quietly cast restorative magic, replenishing the strength of both Sero and Alice. Iobe explains that it is his way of expressing gratitude for their assistance in purging the prison of vermin. He then offers the same blessing to Argyle, but the old man immediately refuses, stating that such magic has never worked on him. Exhausted, Argyle says they must return quickly, and he begins to leave with Alice and Sero as Iobe respectfully bids them farewell. As they walk away, Iobe whispers that Argyle is someone who must survive. Argyle dismisses the concern, telling him not to meddle in other people's lives. Iobe replies softly that he does not mind dying as long as Argyle lives, promising that he will come to his aid whenever needed. The moment Argyle and the others reach a certain distance, Iobe and his followers drop to their knees to pray. Their words reveal a profound, almost unsettling devotion to Argyle, showing they do not merely follow him, but they also revere him, willing to offer even their bodies as sacrifices, and they call him their savior. On their way back, Alice tries to call Argyle's attention, but he doesn't answer her. Noticing that he looks a bit down, she tries to ask him about it, but still, he doesn't respond. Sero then asks Alice about Argyle and Iobe's relationship. Alice tells him that she was only with Argyle for a year after entering Solitude, so she is not quite familiar with most of his close contacts. However, Alice still can't believe Argyle has such a close connection to a fanatic, because he once told her that he hates those who believe in constellations. Hearing this, Sero asks her if believing in a higher being is a bad thing. Alice explains to him that it is not necessarily a bad thing. She further explains that these higher beings don't intervene directly. They appoint representatives, but sometimes, these representatives use that power to either save or bully the weak. Moments later, they arrive at Alice's place in cell 5, 251, and she thanks Argyle for successfully escorting her. Alice is amazed, and no matter how many times she has seen it, it still feels incredible to her how Argyle always manages to decipher the corridor paths. She then informs him that she would try to visit often, but Argyle tells her not to worry about it. Alice laughs it off and promises to drop in on him again. She then hugs him, telling him to stay safe, and Argyle asks her to take care of herself. Thinking about the dangerous corridors as she watches them leave, Alice figures that the corridor for Argyle is like walking on paths of freedom, but for others, it is a terrifying place where death looms. After walking for a while, Sero spots a familiar cell number and, to his immense relief, realizes it is their own. At long last, an entire day after release, the two of them return to their cell, only to find it completely empty. 5 days pass, yet nothing changes. No prisoner ever returns, and the place remains silent. Sero sits alone in a corner of the vacant prison, meditating the way Argyle does, thinking about the countless changes he has experienced in such a short time. He remembers how he once hid behind his brother, trembling in fear, then how he hesitated in every battle, until finally, he became a full-fledged lycanthrope who now kills without a second thought. Sero notes that it isn't only his appearance that has transformed, but his mind has changed as well. He has begun to think more, and sometimes, shame floods him when he recalls his previous weakness. From a distance, Argyle watches in silence, sensing Sero's spirit awakening. Suddenly, Sero sits up, alert, saying a strange scent is approaching. Argyle already guessed that it was Margan. Sero is surprised because the smell is nothing like Margan's old scent. Argyle explains that Margan must have tapped his true power to survive in the corridors, and the odor comes from odd pills. He adds that, like Beckham, Margan has been hiding his real identity from the start. Growing serious, Argyle asks if Sero knows what to do when they arrive, and Sero answers firmly. He vows not to hesitate anymore, because in Solitude, it is either you destroy them or get taken out. Before long, Margan and his crew reach the door, and Margan greets the old man with an overly bright enthusiasm. Still, there's something unsettling about his face as he claims that he is happy to see Argyle again. Suddenly, Sero drops from above in his beast form, attacking Margan. This makes him annoyed, and he marvels at how much Sero has changed after only a few days. Still feigning ignorance, he asks Argyle to stop Sero, but instead Argyle pulls out his weapon, telling him to drop the charade. He then reveals that just like Beckham, Margan tried to lure them because he wanted to turn them into ingredients for his pills. Seeing that he had been made, Margan stops pretending as he suddenly transforms into a red-eyed demon. He insults Argyle and asks when he realized. Ignoring him, Argyle brandishes his weapon, and in a split second he completely wipes out all of Margan's crew members and also fatally wounds Margan. Argyle tells him that Darkus, Indurus, and the Mafia King, who Margan serves, have all made a big mistake going after him. He explains that no one can capture if and when the big bosses want to see him. they should personally come to him instead of sending their small fry. With Margan already losing a ton of blood, Argyle decides to help him meet his maker quickly by swiftly detaching his head. Meanwhile, in the control room, prison warden Shriosan is on a call with the Master of Solitude, Lord Kreisman. After delivering his routine report, Shriosan asks if he has reviewed the latest report on Argyle. Kreisman confirms he has, and remarks that Argyle has been regularly wiping out entire groups of prisoners. Shriosan informs him that he has already issued orders to lock him in solitary confinement for 2 weeks. Kreisman grins as he reveals that after 4 years, it was finally time, so the deal they made with Argyle must not fall through. He adds that the Lycanthrope King will soon be arriving at Solitude to inspect the merchandise, Sero. He tells Shriosan that once the delivery is complete, they will provide Argyle with pills, free of charge. He then inquires about Argyle's current standing with the major prisoners, like Darkus and Kompa. Shriosan reports that they've been playing a tense game of cat and mouse for some time now. He worries that after liberation, a direct conflict between Argyle and Darkus may be inevitable, but Kreisman confidently dismisses his concern, saying that Argyle is not someone who can be taken down by Solitude prisoners. He excitedly states that Argyle will skillfully survive just like he always does. Apparently, watching Argyle's interaction in Solitude has now become a pleasant entertainment for the Master of Solitude. Kreisman shifts the topic again, asking about Argyle's deteriorating health, and he learns that he can barely breathe anymore due to the lack of pills. According to Shriosan, at his current rate, Argyle might join Hades within the next 3 to 6 months. Back in his cell, Sero continues to develop his attributes as he concentrates on trying to feel his surroundings. Soon, he begins to sense the movement of insects nearby and even water droplets. As his attribute improves, Sero begins harnessing it as he tests his capabilities. He notices that he has become crazy stronger than he was a month ago. However, he is not happy because even though he feels stronger, he couldn't even leave a single scratch on Decapitator. From Argyle's words that day, Sero recalls that he needs to use a power stronger than his opponent's attribute, which makes him wonder how to make his wind attribute stronger. After finding no solution, Sero decides to trust Argyle and wait for him to come up with one. While waiting for Argyle, he decides to continue his training in order to become stronger, so as not to be a burden for Lucas. Meanwhile, Argyle sits in a corner meditating while observing Sero practice his wind attribute. Suddenly, Sero stops when he hears the prison door open. He sees a girl standing at the door shouting Argyle's name. She completely ignores Sero's presence and continues to shout for Argyle to come out. Sero notices her guard uniform and wonders why she is looking for the old man. Without making a sound, Argyle quietly appears behind her, and she calls him rude for appearing without making a sound. She asks what if she had been startled and mistakenly attacked him. Argyle simply tells her that she would probably be gone by now if she did, and he calls Sero to stand beside him. The female guard then introduces herself as Teiji, a Class 6 guard. On hearing her class, Sero breaks out in a sweat because she is far stronger than Alice, who is only Class 5. With his senses, he notices she is indeed different from Alice, just from sensing her terrifying aura. Argyle guesses the reason why there has been no prisoner replenishment in their cell was to take him away. Teiji seems annoyed just being there and commands him to follow her since he knows her reason without being told. Argyle complains that his body has been deteriorating lately, so it is quite tiring for him to move around. Teiji's sixth sense flares up as she senses he might be up to some scheme. Although she wants to take action, she remembers that her seniors told her not to act recklessly. Now Teiji is even more confused because no one told her that Argyle would be uncooperative. Argyle notices her dilemma and tells her to wager with him. If she fights Sero and wins, he will follow her quietly, but if she loses, he will remain in his cell. Without asking any questions, Sero prepares to take her on. Teiji finds the wager amusing as she considers him a small fry. She also prepares to fight him, promising not to hold back. Teiji wants to end it quickly and return to her cell. As they begin their fierce fight, Teiji is taken aback when Sero swiftly dodges her attacks. This makes her wonder how a mere Class 3 is able to withstand her. She looks closely and senses he is using the wind attribute. Despite all her efforts, Sero breezes through, dodging her effortlessly. Teiji finally realizes that the old man made such a hopeless wager just to make Sero practice and gain combat experience, so she decides to scare Sero a little. Sero is terrified when Teiji swiftly rushes toward him, almost hitting him, but she dashes past him, using her wind attribute to tear through a slab of metal. Sero is shocked as he realizes they have the same attribute, but this is only enough to lightly scrape the metal slab, while hers was so powerful that it tore through it like a piece of beef. The thought of one day becoming as strong as Teiji makes Sero so excited. Argyle notices this and is pleased because his aim has been achieved, but he also realizes that Teiji is now upset as she turns dark. Teiji is irritated because she saw Sero smiling and guessed he was enjoying himself. Sero is scared when he notices her changed aura, so he decides to focus and try to dodge as much as he can once she attacks him. Since he can't win, he plans to endure. However, he overestimates his dodging abilities because Teiji suddenly appears behind him, and he didn't even sense it beforehand. By the time he notices it, Teiji is lunging towards him full speed, and even though he tries to dodge it, Sero is taken by surprise as her punch suddenly multiplies. Before he can say jack, Sero is pounded 100 times from different directions. Even though his whole body aches and he is unable to move, Teiji refuses to back down, as the multiple fists continue to pound him like ground beef. Argyle observes them in silence without intervening. After knocking Sero out, Teiji tells Argyle that she didn't kill him and informs him she has won the wager. Argyle doesn't argue and promises to quietly follow her. He carries Sero on his back and heads out following behind Teiji. Moments later, Sero wakes up as they reach a fork, and Argyle tries to take the right path, but Teiji stops him, saying they need to go left. He tries to convince her that the right side is faster, and he wants to stop by somewhere before they continue their trip. Teiji finds it unbelievable that he is doing as he pleases, but she still decides to follow him, telling him to walk in front. She doesn't want to get into any troublesome situation by opposing him. Soon, they reach another door, and as it opens, a bright light escapes from the room. Sero wonders where the hell they are and why it was so bright. He is surprised when they enter what looks like a gym with lots of prisoners inside it. Argyle explains that it is the physical training room, a place for endless training. Inside the room, prisoners are seen bodybuilding with personal trainers beside, helping them. Argyle tells Sero he needs to stay in the training room and train for 2 weeks. He explains that he is going somewhere with Teiji and will be back to see Sero after 2 weeks. He asks Sero if he can endure it here until he returns, and Sero confidently agrees, promising to show Argyle that he can do it. Argyle informs him that in the training room, his wind attributes will become stronger than before. Recalling the excitement he felt watching Teiji's power, Sero says he can do it and vows to become much stronger before Argyle's return. The prisoners soon notice Argyle's presence, and 2 of them wonder why Argyle is with a guard. Teiji finds the smell in the room disgusting, and she even got irritated watching them show off their abs, so she decided to wait for Argyle outside. Moments later, a curly-haired big dude and Class 5 prisoner, Delram, arrives. He seems to know Argyle and scolds him for not keeping his promise. Delram questions why he brought a child to the gym, telling him it's not an orphanage. He looks at Sero, commenting that Argyle brought another merchandise this time. Sero is confused, as he wonders what Delram means. Argyle wants them to talk privately, so they head somewhere else, but before leaving, Delram turns to look at the prisoners and, with a creepy look, tells them to keep quiet. They are terrified and quickly shut their mouths. Some even hold their mouth closed with their hands. After changing location, Argyle asks Delram to help him train Sero. Knowing that Argyle is straightforward and doesn't plan to listen to his conditions, Delram challenges him to a duel in exchange for babysitting Sero. Apparently, this is the same condition he gives every time they meet up, even though he is no match for Argyle and ends up being beaten badly. After warning him, Argyle agrees to his deal and gives him the location of their duel. He explains that he is out of time and then prepares to leave, telling Delram not to fill Sero's head with garbage. Delram refuses, saying he plans to do as he pleases since Sero is now under his wing, so Argyle ignores him and walks out. After he leaves, Delram tells Sero to follow him for a beatdown session. Although hearing this scares him, Sero quietly follows him. Meanwhile, Teiji delivers Argyle to solitary confinement, expecting him to act predictably like other prisoners who either beg to be spared or go crazy from being locked up. Some of the prisoners even terminate themselves, unable to endure the endless darkness inside. While thinking about all these, Teiji hesitates to open the door. Argyle grows impatient and asks if the opening mechanism has any issues, which forces her to open it quickly. She wonders why he is still relaxed instead of panicking like the others. After escorting him inside, Argyle thanks her and even gives her directions to the guard's waiting room. Teiji fires back, telling him that she can find her own way back. As she turns to leave, Argyle suddenly grabs her from behind, preventing her from screaming with his hand to her mouth. Teiji is terrified as she wonders if he has gone insane. Unable to move, she soon stops struggling as everything goes dark around her. Back in the training room, Sero is having the worst day of his life as he sprawls on the floor, tired from lifting weights. 2 hefty trainers commend him for enduring even though it was his first time. Sero was expecting something else when Delram said he was going to beat him to a pulp. However, Delram actually meant making him exercise like he was preparing for a marathon. While resting, Sero notices that the prisoners here are only concerned with exercising and bulking up. He is relieved because at least he can just focus on training without worrying about them killing him. However, Sero soon realizes he is way too naive because he is soon dragged to a fighting arena for a duel. The spectators are surprised to see a kid on the stage. Even his opponent, a Class 4 prisoner named Vincent, calls him a weak brat, saying he looks too young. Vincent warns Delram that the kid might not make it out alive, firmly stating that he won't be responsible for any backlash. Delram tells Vincent to knock Sero out, and he can also break a few bones while at it, since he will recover quickly. He reasons that Argyle only takes on valuable merchandise. He already knows that Sero is no ordinary werewolf, so he plans to see his true form by making him fight. As soon as the bell goes off, telling them to fight, Vincent dashes towards Sero, who quickly transforms into his beast form and blocks the attack, making Delram excited. He is surprised because only beastmen who are over 20 can transform, and he concludes that Argyle must have taught him how to do it earlier. Delram is annoyed as he wonders why Argyle teaches others yet refuses to teach him. Meanwhile, Vincent soon overpowers Sero by pinning him to the ground and relentlessly punching him. Each punch is too powerful and his movements are too fast, preventing Sero from escaping him. However, Sero feels Vincent is weaker compared to his previous opponents. He recalls Argyle warning him not to use attributes all the time because they use life force, which consumes one's stamina and mental strength, eventually leading to death. Although he wants to take this advice, he decides not to because this was just a casual fight to test his abilities, not like in the corridors, where everyone is targeting him. Therefore, Sero deploys his wind attribute and swiftly moves from the pinned position, successfully dodging all of Vincent's powerful punches. Vincent is utterly bewildered, wondering how he suddenly dodged all his attacks. While Vincent is still trying to comprehend what just happened, Sero lunges towards him and before he can make any moves, slashes him in different parts with his claws. Vincent falls to the ground, reeling from Sero's strength and soon collapses, bleeding all over his body. The result leaves everyone in the room speechless, and even Delram is shocked beyond his imagination. He can't believe a Class 4 prisoner was defeated by a Class 3 little kid. Apparently, the level of Sero's attributes can only be handled by a Class 5 prisoner or above. Delram knows that Argyle taught him, but he is still surprised that Sero was able to learn it so well. The whole situation leaves him wondering if Argyle teaches based on talent or race. Delram is jealous because Argyle refuses to teach, no matter how hard he begs. He refuses to accept this refusal and wants to prove he is a good fit by taking down Argyle's prized disciple. Sero is confused as Delram walks into the ring with a dark expression on his face, challenging him to duel. Before Delram can land the first punch, Sero hesitates for a moment, wondering if this might be another test. The thought distracts him only briefly, and he pulls himself together just in time to slip away from the incoming strike. Even so, Delram proves to be much faster than he anticipated, and before long, Sero is caught beneath a flurry of heavy blows, and the pressure is a little too much. Although he is on the verge of being overwhelmed, he recalls Argyle's advice about attributes and decides to just endure as long as he can, even if that means pushing himself to the point of fainting. He manages to dodge several attacks, yet Delram eventually finds an opening and drives a powerful punch into Sero's side. This time the pain is sharp and real. Sero knew a Class 5 prisoner would hit hard, but the actual impact is far more brutal than what he had prepared himself for. The force sends him stumbling, and Delram follows with another series of rapid strikes that knock Sero to the ground. Even so, Sero refuses to give up and reminds himself that this is the path he chose, a necessary step toward becoming stronger, so the thought of Lucas pushes him forward with renewed determination. He refuses to remain a burden to his brother, and that conviction sparks a fierce shift within him. As his aura thickens, he finally releases his attribute. Sero moves with sudden speed and appears right in front of Delram before he can strike again. Delram reacts quickly and dodges the counterattack, then lands another hard punch before trapping Sero in a tight hold. The exchange happens so fast that Sero cannot react before Delram slams his head into the ground. Even while dazed, Sero tries to resist, and he struggles against Delram's grip as punch after punch hits him. With a burst of will and the strength of his attribute, he finally breaks free and slips behind Delram. His sudden movement catches the prisoner completely off guard. Sero unleashes a storm of improvised wild attacks, clawing at Delram from several angles at once. To his shock, Delram blocks every strike without receiving so much as a scratch. In response, Delram deploys his earth attribute, and his body begins to transform as red earth armor spreads across him. Just as he prepares to push further, a memory of Argyle surfaces. He recalls approaching Argyle long ago and asking for help to become stronger. Argyle refused, explaining that Delram lacked the resolve to walk the darkness within. Now, watching Sero's raw wildness, Delram finally understands what Argyle meant by walking in darkness. The realization settles over him, and for the first time, he accepts the truth behind Argyle's reasoning. Delram finally calms down and even praises Sero's talent. As he watches him, he mutters that his darkness is good. Sero gives him a confused look and asks if Delram also trained by walking through that strange dark abyss. The question leaves Delram speechless and confused. A bit of sweat slides down his face as he tries to figure out what Sero is talking about. He wonders if Sero means literal darkness and is surprised that there could even be a training method like that. After a short pause, Sero decides to explain as he tells Delram how the whole thing works, and even Argyle's meditation method. He says he grew stronger after learning to meditate, just like Argyle taught him. Delram stares at him, then bursts out laughing and calls him stupid. He says he has meditated before and never became strong by sitting around like a duck. Sero insists that this method is different and tries to describe the feeling of walking through the darkness inside the inner self. He admits he did not understand at first either, but over time he began to see what Argyle meant. Even with the extra explanation, Delram still does not get it. Nothing makes sense to him, so he assumes Argyle's training must have some deeper part he has not seen. Driven by that thought, he begs Sero to teach him. The sudden request startles Sero, and he hesitates as he tries to answer. He has only trained under Argyle for about a month and does not feel like someone who has the right to teach anyone else. While thinking it over, Sero remembers Argyle's warnings. The old man told him not to act like a busybody and warned that speaking to someone who is inside their own darkness is extremely dangerous. Argyle even told him never to look into it, let alone talk to anyone, while they are in that state. These warnings echo in Sero's mind as he tries to figure out what he should do next. Delram stays excited and even drops to his knees, begging like a child asking for a treat. He admits that the reason he accepted Argyle's deal in the first place was to learn the training method from Sero, since Argyle had refused him so many times. Sero watches him and wonders how he is supposed to handle this level of pestering. Argyle will not return for another 2 weeks, and he knows he will have to deal with Delram during every training session. He starts thinking that maybe it would be fine to teach him just a little. On the outside, Delram is smiling from ear to ear, but deep inside, he is panicking. He wonders if pushing a kid for something this serious is the right move. He forces himself to calm down, thinking Sero will probably refuse anyway. Sero is also in a tight spot, feeling very pressured. He stammers a bit, looking at him like a wet puppy. The moment Sero agrees to teach him even a small part, Delram instantly lights up like a bubbly kid again, and he urges Sero to start the training right away. Sero is a little surprised by the sudden request, but he goes along with it. They sit down in a meditative position, and Sero tells Delram to close his eyes and clear his mind of any wandering thoughts. Following Argyl's example, Sero begins teaching him the breathing pattern and gently guides him toward entering his inner self. Somewhere else in the guard resting area, Taiji is chilling in a sauna, but she can't stop thinking about Argyll and what happened after she tried to leave him. Previously, after escorting him into solitary confinement, Taiji tried to leave, but Argyll suddenly grabbed her from behind, covering her mouth with his hand to stop her from screaming. She misunderstood him and had almost passed out from a panic attack when he suddenly motioned to her to look ahead. To her horror, she saw a corridor ghost standing directly outside the door, waiting for its prey. If Argyll hadn't sensed it first and acted swiftly by grabbing her like that, Taiji would have probably walked right into its mouth. He releases her from his hold as the two of them peer at the multi-eyed, ugly-looking lizard monster that latched itself to the door, trying to break the protective barrier on it. Taiji is grateful that Argyll saved her from becoming some monster's dinner. However, she finds it strange that a monster tried to attack her because she already has an amulet made by the Light Constellation's faction. Apparently, the special amulet is supposed to stop corridor ghosts from acting crazy and also keep them away. Taiji wonders how the ghost found her and why she didn't even notice the monster's presence. It puzzles her further why the amulet didn't work its magic. Argyll tells her that the ghost was probably too strong, or maybe it even malfunctioned. He also explains that sometimes amulets don't work on some specific corridor ghosts. Taiji is surprised, as this is her first time hearing that corridor ghosts can malfunction. After the monster gets tired of pounding the barrier, it moves along, and Taiji prepares to return to the guard rest area. After stepping out of the door, she pauses and tells Argyll that she hasn't been working in solitude for very long. However, she has heard numerous rumors about him. She decisively asks him what he truly is, and his true identity in solitude. After hesitating for a bit, Argyll tells her to go see the clerk, Bemlio, if she's interested in learning more about him. Taiji is stunned to hear this because Bemlio is a Class 9 guard with a hidden job title. She wonders how a mere Class 1 prisoner like Argyll knows about him. Argyll turns around and tells her to direct all her questions to the clerk. He impatiently asks her to shut the door because he has things to do. Soon, Taiji leaves as the door closes behind her. Back in the present, she still continues to muse over Argyll as she feels there must be some secret she doesn't know about him. Meanwhile, Senpai Sero seems to be having a tough time. He finds himself alone in the dark abyss, which leaves him wondering what the hell happened to his student. As he looks around searching for Delram, he wonders if the experiment failed. Sero frantically starts calling out to him. Suddenly, Argyll appears behind him and whispers his disappointment in Sero for disregarding his warning and entering someone's inner self. Argyll says he was planning to enjoy his 2 weeks of rest, but Sero had to create another troublesome situation. Sero staggers as he turns around, shocked to see him, and starts bombarding him with questions like how and why he was inside the abyss. He finds it unbelievable since Argyll is supposed to be in solitary confinement. Argyll reminds him about their link, which can allow him to enter Sero's inner mind as he pleases and at any time. Argyll then tells Sero that Delram is not ready to work in the darkness within because the colors in his mind are too bright. Delram, on the other hand, truly cannot handle the darkness as he floats lifelessly in suspension. Argyll explains that Delram gets easily distracted by the bright colors in his mind, and therefore he can't see the real darkness in which he is supposed to walk. He warns Sero that they need to rescue Delram, or he might never return to normal and even lose his life. Hearing this makes Sero panic, and he frantically asks Argyll how they can save him. Argyll says he needs to take responsibility for his mess-up, leaving him confused. Suddenly, a dark, thick mesh seizes him as he struggles to break free. Argyll is the one who summoned it, and he manipulates it to wrap itself around Sero, crushing him. Argyll lectures him, saying the heavier the responsibility, the stronger he becomes. He tells Sero to feel the weight for a while, as he plans to lock him up in the darkness for a while because he disobeyed orders. Before long, the dark mesh completely wraps itself all over Sero, swallowing him up as he struggles to free himself. Using his mind voice, Sero apologizes and begs Argyll to forgive him. His eyes are filled with terror, and he continues calling out to Argyll through his inside voice, but Argyll ignores him until he is completely swallowed. Meanwhile, Delram is still floating lifelessly inside the darkness. Argyll says he has truly grown since they first met. Delram used to hesitate because he couldn't accept himself, but now he is more calm. Argyll wonders if it is because he became the training room manager. Sensing his desperation, Argyll decides to give Delram a little hand. After going a bit farther into the darkness, Argyll stops seeing that he has come far enough. He questions something unseen and calls out to it. Suddenly, a giant, tall, dark figure appears in front of him. The figure had bright golden eyes and a weird marking on its forehead, just between both eyes. Argyll says he has waited for years, and he can continue to wait. Immediately, the dark figure slowly returns to the ground in a dormant state. Apparently, whatever this thing is, Argyll has waited for it for over 60 years, and he is not in a hurry, so he says to wait just a little much longer. After his business with the giant dark figure, Argyll turns to look at Sero, who is still wrapped securely inside the black mesh. Shortly after, he turns to leave, excitedly saying that he has finally found a pleasant hobby after a long time. As he leaves, Argyll bids the dark figure goodbye, decisively saying they would meet again. Meanwhile, back in the training room, some excessively ripped dude shows off his 10-packs and heavy biceps. After checking himself out, this dude, Pyram, a Class 5 prisoner, is quite pleased with the results. Pyram is proud and narcissistic as he praises his dope bod and boasts about his heavy weightlifting ability. Apparently, this dude wants to be the top dog in the training room. However, he is worried that Delram might steal his thunder if Argal agrees to train him in return for taking care of Sero. Recalling how powerful Sero is, Piram reasons that Delram might surpass him beyond his imagination if Argal steps in. This scares him, and he decides to find a way to separate Delram and Argal. Piram takes an orb from his locker to contact the demon worshippers. He informs them that Argal came to their training room and reveals that he left, leaving the kid behind. He makes a deal with them to hand Sero over in exchange for something, probably the power to surpass Delram. Moments later, he heads to Delram's bunker and calls out his name. When no one answers him, Piram enters, asking for Sero. He is surprised to see them in that position and is puzzled when no one answers him. He dismisses their silence and continues to chatter, telling Delram that he wants to teach Sero the rules of the training room. He explains that he will handle it himself, and Delram does not need to be present during the educational session. He stops chattering and asks Delram about his thoughts on the suggestion, but no one answers him. Piram then notices that Sero is also completely out and wonders what is happening. He notes that although they seem conscious, none of them is responsive. He decides to take Delram's silence as a sign that he agrees and picks Sero up like a bag of meat. Piram leaves the room pleased with himself as things go more smoothly than he expected. At the same time, a group of demon worshippers lingers in the corridor near the training room. They seem to be waiting for Piram and discussing among themselves if they can trust a muscle-brain brat like him. One of the demon worshippers says they need to wait patiently for him since he sounded confident about capturing Sero. While they are still discussing, Piram interrupts them with an unconscious Sero swinging on his shoulders. He asks them for his stuff, and they hand him a small box with 5 capsules inside filled with red stuff. Piram is delighted as he makes the exchange. After taking the kid, they ask him to stay in touch for more cooperation opportunities. Piram agrees and hurriedly leaves, clinging tightly to his precious cheat system. Watching him leave, one of the demon dudes calls him dumb because he only thinks about muscles. Back in the training room, everyone continues their normal routine. Delram, on the other hand, soon begins to regain consciousness, and moments later, he jolts back to reality, sweating profusely. He frantically looks around the room, wondering what happened to Sero. Delram checks himself out, still thinking about his experience during his walk in his inner self. To him, that moment felt like he was visiting another world. He also recalled the memories of his past as an arena prisoner, winning the champion's seat. During his walk in his inner self, Delram was captivated by his shiny past glory. Thankfully, before he was sucked in, he realized timely that the past has to stay in the past. Apparently, Delram was trapped in his colorful past all along, and unable to take even one step forward. Just when he was feeling trapped, he saw a small purple swirl behind him. He instinctively knew that he needed to take the dark path behind his colorful memories. He immediately abandoned his past, and as he walked into the dark path, it was as if someone was calling him from within that small darkness. Delram wonders who the hell was beckoning to him and questions if it is his future self. But as we know, it might have been Argal. Suddenly, a prisoner bursts into the room, calling out to Delram saying something terrible has happened. Delram is puzzled and wonders if it is because of their resident troublemaker Piram challenging him to another duel. He explains that Piram went ballistic and beat up the guys in the training room without any reason whatsoever. Delram quickly rushes out to confront him. He tells Piram to face him directly and leave the boys out of their feud. Piram is unfazed and threatens to turn him into a bloody sausage. With a creepy, wicked grin, he tells Delram that he had such a rush taking out everyone in the training room. Seeing the look in Piram's eyes scares the dude who reported everything earlier, and he warns Delram not to face Piram alone. Delram is not worried and informs Piram that he also just had a very exhilarating experience and confidently says he plans to test the results right now. Somewhere else, Sero is still out of it and surrounded by the demon worshippers as they watch him make some incoherent sound, wondering what he is babbling about. Suddenly, chaos erupts as he starts ripping them apart limb from limb. It is shockingly revealed that Argal had possessed Sero's body, and this was the thrilling hobby he was referring to earlier. Argal has been curious for a while now about what it would feel like to possess a werewolf body. Shortly after, more demon worshippers arrive at the bloody scene, and they are completely shocked that a kid can wreak that much havoc so effortlessly. One of them complains loudly that no one gave them any heads up about the kid's abilities. Another notices the number 51 clearly marked on Sero's neck. Meanwhile, Argal, now in control of Sero's body, can feel his emotions spreading strongly through him. Sero, although unconscious, seems to want to jump in and tear everything apart. This raging part of him is something possessed only by purebloods. Argal wonders if this uncontrollable rage is the reason werewolves went extinct so long ago. He is so thrilled that he wishes he could keep using Sero's body forever without restriction. Unfortunately, Sero is merchandise waiting to be delivered soon. Since this exciting cargo will not be in solitude for long, Argal decides to enjoy it to the absolute fullest. Argal soon breaks past the beast transformation limit, which Sero could never achieve before, this being because Argal's mental power is far stronger than his. Sero's body transforms into a full-blown, terrifying lycanthrope. As he lunges toward the demon worshippers, they desperately cast a spell against him. But Argal is completely unaffected and terminates them swiftly. Before long, blood stains the battlefield as Argal goes on a rampage, eliminating the rest of the demon worshippers mercilessly. After clearing out the room, he returns to human form, bare-skinned. He quickly grabs clothes from the expired guys while complaining that, after every transformation, clothing is always a problem. He soon senses Jacob nearby and wants to ask him for some durable magic clothes that won't rip during future transformations. Argyle also plans to check in on Delram shortly after meeting with Jacob. Meanwhile, back in the training room, everyone is surprised to see Delram knocked out cold by Pyram, which they find extremely strange and immediately makes them start suspecting that Pyram must have done something shady. Because at the beginning of the fight, both of them were evenly matched, but by the end, something unusual happened, and the fight inexplicably flowed in favor of Pyram. Looking back at Delram's attack patterns, they realize he is much better than before and must have learned something new in secret. They also wonder if Pyram had undergone some special training, because his attacks were incredibly fast and powerful, almost unnatural. The two of them fought as if their lives depended on it, moving like feral beasts fighting desperately for territory. Watching their improved strength gave the rest of the guys in the training room goosebumps and left them completely in awe. Even though at first, Delram and Pyram's attacks matched each other perfectly. With neither gaining the upper hand, the tide turns too quickly, as Pyram soon surpasses him. With a single devastating blow, he leaves Delram looking like a helpless pufferfish. At that moment, Delram regrets his earlier arrogance, wishing he had trained far more seriously in the past and not underestimated his opponent. Suddenly, Delram hears someone telepathically call out his name. He immediately recognizes the voice as Argyle's. It turns out Argyle was already there in Siro's body, standing silently behind the crowd. He scolds Delram sharply, asking if he plans to keep getting beaten like a donkey, and reminds him of all the trouble he personally went through just to guide him into the darkness. Hearing this, Delram finally realizes that Argyle was the one who had guided him out of his brightly colored memory and into the darkness behind it. Delram then begs Argyle to continue guiding him, saying he is tired of being treated like trash by Pyram. Argyle grins, pleased because Delram is finally willing to drop his pompous attitude and begs sincerely. While Delram continues being stuck at the receiving end of Pyram's attack, Argyle instructs him to close his eyes. Delram finds this bizarre and questions him, thinking, who the hell closes their eyes in the middle of a battlefield? He fears that once his eyes are closed, Pyram might target his jaw and end him swiftly. Argyle reminds him to let go and overcome his fear by taking a step forward, just like he did when walking through the darkness. Still getting punched to a pulp and already out of options, Delram decides to trust him. He closes his eyes, and once again he finds himself in the darkness. Argyle tells him not to look with his eyes, but instead to feel his opponent's movements, attributes, killing intent, obsession, and fighting spirit. With the guidance of his spiritual sensei, Argyle, Delram gradually begins to break through his limitations and transforms into his red earth armor, feeling stronger than ever before. After going through his reawakening, Delram turns the tide against Pyram with a single powerful punch to the face, giving him free plastic surgery. This sudden new turn of events leaves the crowd completely stunned and speechless. A wide grin spreads across Delram's face as he realizes just how awesome it feels to be trained by Argyle himself. Pyram collapses to the ground after receiving his free lip and nose job. Delram, now filled with renewed confidence, announces that the match is officially over, and Pyram reluctantly concurs. Refusing to give up, Pyram suddenly opens his chest to reveal a weird purple swirl spreading rapidly from his chest across his entire body. He doesn't want to stay in a place where he can't be the top dog, so since he can't get what he wants, he decides to destroy it all. With an evil, menacing laughter, he announces this while preparing to self-destruct with everyone still inside the training room. Delram immediately barks orders, telling everyone to quickly evacuate the training room. No one heeds his warning, but suddenly realizing the purple pattern on him could be from the demon worshippers, the crowd erupts and swiftly rushes out, while Argyle fearlessly dashes in the opposite direction toward Pyram. In less than a second, with a single, swift movement, he swipes Pyram's head from his body. He moved so fast that even the grin on Pyram's face remained perfectly intact after it was detached. After shutting off the broken radio, Argyle confidently says he hates chatterboxes. Moments later, the prisoners are back in the training room watching the lower half of Pyram's body emit a weird, smelly purple smoke. Delram says he must have gotten some pills from the demon worshippers. Another gym bro who just arrived sees Delram's beaten up face and completely misunderstands the situation, immediately starting to scold Siro. Delram quickly stops him, explaining that it is Argyle occupying the body. The guy can't believe it as he stares at Siro's body in disbelief. To prove it, Delram shows him the prisoner number, 51, belonging to Argyle, boldly pasted on the body. And that's when everyone finally accepts it. Argyle explains that he was bored in solitary confinement, so he decided to borrow the body for a little cruise. Although he is puzzled that body possession is even possible, Delram reasons that in solitude almost anything can probably happen. Growing more curious, he wants to know if Argyle develops merchandise through such methods, but Argyle, not ready to reveal anything, warns him to keep his nose out of his business. Moments later, another guy rushes in announcing that hundreds of demon worshippers have gathered outside the training room. Hearing the news leaves the prisoners terrified. Delram is pissed, realizing they had been targeted from the start with Pyram as the appetizer, and he angrily threatens to send them all to their maker. Unfortunately, still injured from the last fight, he collapses to the ground, coughing. Watching Delram struggle, Argyle thinks about the demon worshippers' plan to take over the training room by using Pyram. Now that their plan has fallen apart, they've come in hordes to devour everything instead. The training room prisoners are scared and worried because the demon vermin showed up right when Delram was badly injured. Determined to protect their territory, everyone confidently rushes outside to defend it. Delram tries to join them despite his injuries, but they stop him. He wonders how they can hold off hundreds of black magic users with their measly numbers. He fears that the entire training room will be wiped out if they don't find a breakthrough soon. Even though other training rooms will send support, Delrum worries they might all become chicken feed before help arrives. Knowing the only way to survive is if Argyle steps in, Delrum begs him to help them. Argyle, less concerned, ignores him and remains seated meditating. Delrum offers to make a deal with him. Since Argyle loves making deals, he promises to do anything if Argyle can save his people. Without hesitation, Argyle agrees, asking for his soul in exchange for their safety. Delrum is shocked and left wondering if Argyle plans to possess his soul, just like he did with Sero's body. He knows that trusting Argyle has never been the wrong choice. And with the demon worshippers waiting to steal everyone's life force and possibly their soul, which either way is essentially the same for him, Delrum realizes there is no time to hesitate. He can't risk losing the lives of his innocent subordinates, so he agrees, offering his soul to Argyle. Argyle readily accepts the deal and instructs Delrum to stay indoors while he handles the vermin outside. Argyle immediately knocks him out from behind, knowing he might otherwise refuse to listen. He then tells one of the prisoners to carefully lay him down inside while he handles the situation outside so that Delrum can rest peacefully without worry. After handling Delrum, Argyle rushes outside swiftly to help the others. Meanwhile, outside, the demon worshippers and the gym dudes are engaged in a chaotic brawl. Argyle soon steps in Sero's full wolf form, swiftly wreaking havoc as he mercilessly raises the demon worshippers, splattering plasma everywhere. Seeing the terrifying wolf, the demon vermin begins panicking because it is too fast, and black magic doesn't work on it either. Hearing this, one of the demon guys is shocked but comforts himself, saying the wolf will eventually run out of fuel, and then they can destroy it. Delrum's subordinates are not having a swell time either, as the demon vermin use black magic lasers to torch them like Clark Kent. But even at their alarming disadvantage, the prisoners refuse to abandon ship. Even with most of their colleagues wiped out, they remain determined to press on. Argyle pauses for a moment to assess the situation and notices that the prisoners might be completely wiped out before he can save them. Additionally, the battlefield is a little too cramped for him to fully flex his abilities, so he heads outside the room to clean up the remaining threats quickly. The horde of demon worshippers waiting their turn outside is stunned at the sight of the lycanthrope as they nervously wonder what exactly he is. One of the vermin, also from the inside, explains that the monstrous figure is from the training room side and has already taken out several members. The group leader screams loudly, ordering them to immediately capture the monster at all costs. Argyle glances back inside the training room to see the chaos still raging, with nearly half of the training room guys already wiped out. He then transforms back, deciding to let Sero's body rest for a while and recover. Watching his transformation, the demon vermin finally realizes that he is a werewolf. Believing he gave up the wolf form due to fatigue, they decide they must capture him quickly. Argyle is soon surrounded as several of them rush toward him from all sides, desperately trying to attack him with black magic. But even in Sero's human form, Argyle continues to wreak even more havoc, leaving them completely confused and terrified. After the dust settles, it is revealed that Argyle's giant bear friend, Anton, is the one who handled the demon worshippers. Argyle had searched carefully in the darkness and summoned him because he was the closest ally he could find at that moment. Anton proudly says he is honored to have been chosen by Argyle and shouts loudly that he is fully ready to follow all his orders without question. Later, Delrum wakes up with his injuries already patched up and asks about the situation with the demon worshippers' attack. The blonde dude explains that there were too many casualties, and most of the training room guys were wiped out in the raid. The news shocks Delrum as he angrily leaves his room with his subordinate tagging behind and warning him not to move, or his wounds might get worse. But Delrum ignores his protest and walks into the training room only to see a pile of torn-up demon worshippers. The subordinate tells him that they also suffered heavy losses, but in the end, they won thanks to Argyle's intervention. Delrum asks where Argyle is, and the subordinate hands him a letter saying Argyle went into the corridors to deal with the remaining demon worshipper camps in the surrounding areas. Delrum chuckles at the old man's letter, which simply says he went out for a walk. Meanwhile, Argyle and Anton are outside the corridors after destroying another demon worshipper camp. As they head toward their next raid, Argyle notices a patch covering one of Anton's eyes and asks him about it, but Anton tells him not to worry. Argyle can't ignore it and presses him further, but Anton refuses to explain. When Argyle staggers slightly, Anton checks on him, but Argyle says he needs to visit the warden soon and has recovered some strength, so there's no need for Anton to worry. Still worrying, Anton hands him an extension grass, explaining that he picked it up during the last liberation. Knowing how difficult it is to obtain, Argyle asks whether someone named Shimini was responsible for Anton's lost eye. Anton stammers for a bit, not wanting to go into detail. He tells Argyle that he is fine, and he even won. Argyle is surprised, since this Shimini is apparently much stronger than Anton, meaning Anton must have grown a lot since Argyle last saw him. Argyle commends him for his hard work, and it is revealed that, like Delrum, Anton offered his soul to Argyle and has also walked through the inner darkness. After praising him, Argyle then scolds him for risking his life despite all the warnings he had given him. He says he doesn't want him getting hurt and warns him not to put himself in danger by doing unnecessary things. Anton is shocked and quickly apologizes, asking Argyle to forgive him. Argyle accepts and continues on a bit further. On their way, they run into a stuck-up butler with a floating disc between his hands, looking for Argyle. Anton immediately prepares for a fight, but Argyle stops him just in time. The butler says he has come with a message from his master, then sets the disc on the ground, projecting a holographic call from the vampire king, Indurus. Indurus explains that he couldn't leave his cell, so he had to send his butler. Argyle mocks him, saying it's because he's too afraid to come out. Endurus doesn't deny it, stating that he has survived in solitude for so long precisely because of fear. Anton watches closely, wondering if another pointless fight is about to break out. However, Endurus apologizes for his foolish subordinate Beckham, who offended Argyle. He explains that Beckham's actions were not his intention. Argyle finds the apology suspicious, since someone called a king would never humble himself so easily. He assumes Endurus must have set up some hidden trap. However, Argyle is completely stunned when Endurus actually bows his head. Not caring about damaging his reputation as the terrifying vampire king, Endurus admits it was his fault and offers to make amends. Anton isn't convinced and tells him to state his real business. As expected, Endurus admits he has another reason for contacting them. He asks Argyle if he intends to forgive Darkus, but Argyle bluntly refuses. Endurus had already anticipated this answer, so he didn't push further. He simply says that all he can do is watch his comrades get wiped out by Argyle. Before leaving, Argyle tells him to stay in his lane, like the high and mighty noble he has always been. Showing his killing intent, he warns Endurus that if he tries to interfere, he'll send one of his friends to end him. As Argyle and Anton walk away, Endurus is left feeling defeated since he couldn't convince Argyle to stop. He can't believe that a whole vampire king like him ended up cowering before a mere old mortal, and wonders who in the world could actually stop Argyle now. Meanwhile, Argyle and Anton continue their tour and soon arrive at another demon worshippers' camp. Without hesitation, they begin wreaking havoc on countless demon vermin. No matter how many appear, none are left standing as they are mercilessly crushed to pieces. After another successful raid, Anton notes that the demon worshippers seem to be preparing something in another compartment, since they were deliberately splitting their attacks instead of charging all at once. Argyle explains that they're probably stalling for time, which he finds annoying. A moment later, they step into another room with a floating piece of metal in the middle of the empty space. Elsewhere, William, the demon worshippers' 17th captain and Class 6 prisoner, is sitting on a pile of corpses while watching Anton through a device. William doesn't understand why Anton sided with the people from the training room, also called the Exercise Alliance, and teamed up with a little wolf kid. He brushes the thoughts aside and boasts about wiping out a bunch of Class 1 prisoners in the corridors, which he plans to use their bodies for fuel. Satisfied with his supply, William declares he won't lose to Anton. He's excited because he doesn't even need to track Anton down, since he was already heading straight toward him. William also plans to capture Sero after defeating Anton and offer him to Darkus, so he eagerly waits for them to arrive. Shortly after, Argyle and Anton race forward swiftly until they find William, still sitting on his pile of meat. He welcomes them, saying he just finished preparing food. Argyle ignores his nonsense and asks if he ordered the black magic raid on their training room. William says he did, while noticing that the werewolf sounds way too mature for a kid. He dismisses the thought, saying he plans to catch and offer him to Darkus anyway. He then turns to face Anton, asking him if he is trying to impress Argyle by babysitting the kid. Anton completely ignores him, which irritates William. William gets bored when Anton doesn't indulge in his conversation, so he prepares his black magic tricks, promising to turn him into a nice little fur coat. Anton is a bit stunned when he sees William's show of power, which is as expected for a captain-level Class 6 black magic user. Using his powers, William summons 2 giant monsters, and, using black magic, controls them to attack Argyle and Anton. The giant beast with a tail in place of legs faces Anton, while the spider-looking one goes after Argyle. As Anton and the beast engage in a fierce fight, they both match each other pretty well, with no one having the upper hand against the other. For Anton, the beast's attacks are pretty heavy, but not fatal. This makes him realize that its simple strategy is to stall for time in order to drain Anton's stamina. They continue fighting, and Anton notices that the beast is quite fast, despite its huge body. But that doesn't faze him because he is also quite fast for a big teddy bear. Without hesitating, Anton swiftly chops him up a bit with his butcher axe. Meanwhile, Argyle and the creature are still embroiled in a fierce battle. He soon realizes that the claws on the lycanthrope can't cut through the spider monster, so he decides to deploy Sero's attribute even though it might drain him quickly. He deploys the wind attribute and lunges at the monster like the Flash, which even stuns the spider monster. In a matter of seconds, Argyle tears the strange spider apart with his claws like a rag doll. By the time he was done, Anton was also finished and triumphantly standing beside his chopped beast sausages. William, now standing on his pile of meat, commends them for making it this far, but he has no plans of letting them rest. Using his black magic, he reassembles the 2 monsters once again as Argyle and Anton stand watching him work. However, this time, he merges the 2 monsters into a bigger, new, and improved giant ninja spider with a tail. Moments after it is assembled, the monster immediately attacks Anton and Argyle at the same time. William watches the fight excitedly and is super pleased with himself for coming up with such a masterpiece. While laughing like a maniac, he invites Argyle to play with him, but Argyle bluntly refuses, claiming that he is already tired due to his advanced age and wants to rest for a bit. William is annoyed with him for trying to ruin his entertainment, but he overestimates himself because Argyle resting means he was not interested in running around chasing petty monsters. Rest for Argyle meant taking out the source of the troublesome situation. Before William even realizes what is happening, he literally loses his head before the main game even begins, thanks to Argyle's speedy intervention. After separating William's head, the monster still doesn't stop attacking, making Argyle realize that William was pouring life force into corpses and controlling them using black magic, which means the thing he just decapitated is a decoy, not the real William. Argyle has to find and eliminate the real body in order to stop the conjured monster. Argyle looks around, wondering if the real dude is cowering somewhere, waiting for them to run out of juice before coming out to capture them easily. The real perpetrator is already inside another body, hiding beneath the pile as he teases Argyle, telling him to find him. William says they can't catch or kill him because he uses soul black magic to seal souls and moves from corpse to corpse. Even if found, he would just exit and move into another corpse, meaning this dude is immortal, which is even more troublesome. Argyle soon notices his presence beneath the pile, and without hesitation he tears apart the heap to reach him. In the process, he also takes out the new body as William leaves the body, wondering how Argyle found him. And just like that, he enters another new digs. But to his shock, Argyle immediately catches him, saying he finds dealing with spirits quite troublesome. Before losing his head, he asks Argyle how he keeps finding him. Argyle explains that he might not use magic or knowledge, but he has heard and seen plenty in solitude. Before his head is crushed, William is utterly shocked when he notices the number 51 on Argyle's neck. As he flees, he realizes that it is really Argyle inside the werewolf, and not a kid as he had expected. Now he is truly scared because even if he runs, he can't hide from the old man and would definitely get caught. Seeing that he is in deep shit and can't even escape, William enters another body, deciding to summon something else. William, although afraid, refuses to die like a coward. While preparing for a summoning, William wonders what to conjure since an ordinary spirit will certainly not cut it. He notes that he needs someone with very strong emotions. Meanwhile, Anton once again defeats the giant ninja spider monster, tearing it apart like a bunch of junk metal pieces. William uses all the remaining corpses to summon someone who he thinks can hold back Anton and Argyle while he escapes. Anton and Argyle watch from a distance as black magic covers the corpses and gradually condenses them. Moments later, William successfully conjures a dark, weird monster with red horns. He hopes it can stall for time, allowing him to easily escape while Anton and Argyle are preoccupied with it. William is pleased as he watches his masterpiece, also known as an evil spirit, thinking he himself, who summoned it, can't even control it. As soon as the evil spirit is summoned, Anton immediately rushes over to take it out, saying he will crush as many as William summons. He uses his axe to crush its head, but the evil spirit's head is quite tough, and the axe doesn't even leave a scratch. It easily lands a fatal blow on Anton's side instead, leaving him in pain. William grins and is pleased when he sees Anton knocked out by only one hit. He quickly takes off while they are distracted, hoping that even though the evil spirit is no match for Argyle, it can still keep him busy while he escapes successfully. After taking down Anton, the evil spirit heads over to deal with Argyle. Suddenly, Anton, still clutching his side, tries to help his master, Argyle. William, on the other hand, is still thrilled, thinking he can definitely escape from Argyle alive once the evil spirit takes him on. But he has completely overestimated himself, because what happens next sends his head spinning in utter confusion. To his shock, the evil spirit drops to its knees like a slave saluting its master. As if it recognizes Argyle and knows it is no match for him, the evil spirit begs Argyle to kill him swiftly without letting him suffer. Apparently, it already recognizes that Argyle, who walks through darkness and chaos, is the one occupying the werewolf. Argyle asks for its name, but the evil spirit says it isn't important and once again begs him to end him without letting him suffer. Anton finally regains a bit of strength, and he gives himself an injection as he watches the bizarre sight unfold. Argyle decides not to end the evil spirit's life and instead asks for its wish. The spirit then pleads for permission to withdraw and return to where it came from. Without hesitation, Argyle agrees, and the evil spirit thanks him softly before vanishing. After it vanishes completely, Anton asks Argyle about what just happened, but Argyle dismisses him, asking about his body. Anton explains that his ribs are broken, but they will heal soon. He then offers to chase after William, who is already long gone, but Argyle says it's not necessary. He further adds that he already contacted someone by telepathy and told them to take out any prisoners escaping in the nearby corridors. Turns out the one Argyle contacted for the job is Delram, who already crushed William to a pulp while he was trying to escape. Argyle contacts Delram again, telepathically asking for updates. After hearing the job was done, Argyle commends him and says they'll see each other next time. Delram also thanks him for saving the training room, promising never to forget the debt. After returning to human form, Argyle and Anton set out again. However, because of Sero's young and still developing body, Argyle keeps getting tired and sleepy far too quickly, so he asks Anton to carry him for a while. Anton, happy as always to serve his master, immediately agrees and asks where they are headed next. Argyle tells him to go to the arena, explaining that the guards will probably come looking for him soon. As they head out, Anton happily holds him like a baby, and Argyle, entrusting the body's safety to him, informs him that he's going to be out for a few days. As the body rests, Argyle slips back into the darkness within to check in on Sero's condition. It has been 6 days since he took over the body, and Argyle wonders if he should release Sero before his spirit completely breaks under the pressure. As some of the ropes binding him unravel, Sero looks miserable and mentally drained as he begs Argyle to end the torture, saying he can't endure it any longer. Argyle tells him he can't be released yet, but he might soon leave solitude. Sero is stunned to hear this, though he can't fully wrap his head around what Argyle means, and questions him. Ignoring his question, Argyle locks him back up and prepares to leave, promising they will meet again in a week. As the darkness swallows him up again, Sero struggles and desperately calls out Argyle's name. A few days later, Argyle wakes up in Sero's body, and Anton informs him that they are close to the arena. Anton, wearing a pink apron like a mama bear preparing food, asks Argyle if he wants some. Argal readily accepts, already starving after being asleep for days. Anton tells him to wait a moment as he adds seasoning and the remaining condiments to the simmering soup. Moments later, Anton finishes cooking, and after Argal cleans out his bowl with impressive speed, he commends Anton's improved cooking skills. Anton beams with pride and explains that he remembered Argal's preferences, so he practiced roughly 150 times just to please him and make sure the taste was perfect. Suddenly, a prison guard approaches them and delivers a message from the prison warden for Argal. He informs him that he has been summoned for a meeting with a guest inside the arena. Hearing this, Anton recalls that Argal had asked him to head toward the arena a few days earlier. He is surprised and a bit impressed that everything is unfolding exactly as Argal predicted. Before leaving for the arena with Anton, Argal tells the guard that he also came because he has some arena business to handle, and orders him to tell the warden exactly that. After giving the guard this return message, Argal and Anton continue their journey. Meanwhile, in the arena's VIP room, a renowned Karen named Talahar, who happens to be the lycanthrope king and Sero's father, is raising hell, demanding to see the prison warden. Apparently, he is far from pleased with their shitty level of hospitality and is angrily trashing the whole place while roasting the shitty Solitude prison, demanding to see the manager immediately. Argal and Anton soon arrive at a corridor close to the arena, where they meet a Class 7 arena official named Tolman. Argal is surprised to see him all grown because the last time they met, he was only a boy. Tolman protests, saying he is over 50 years old and asks Argal to stop treating him like a child. Argal continues to tease him, saying he would think about it if Tolman says please first. Anton watches their interaction, and he is surprised by how casual Tolman is with Argal, and he concludes that they must be pretty tight. As Tolman leads them on like a guide, Argal tells him not to bother since he knows the way without being guided by anyone. Tolman explains that the situation doesn't permit leaving him alone, which is why he is being guided. After leading them for a while, Tolman stops informing them that he can only come this far. He then informs Argal that the guest waiting in the arena came to inspect the merchandise. He also explains that Argal possessing Sero's body right now is a good thing because then no one can carelessly lay a hand on him. Argal decides to head in alone, asking Anton to wait there also. Argal then steps into the elevator, which immediately zooms off to the VIP area of the arena. Meanwhile, Talahar is still angrily trashing up the whole place, moving even further in. The clerk, Bemlio, a Class 9 prisoner, tries to talk some sense into him, telling him to stop the commotion. He informs the angry Karen that his merchandise is already heading this way. Hearing them calling his son merchandise makes Talahar even angrier than he was before. Bemlio, who knows nothing about customer service, tries to explain that they simply store merchandise safely in their own way, according to prison regulations. Noticing how Bemlio said it like some noble prude acting as if they were doing him a favor, Talahar is irritated, stating that he paid for the service, so they have no right to act like they're being generous. Moments later, Argal arrives while the two men are bickering like housewives. Talahar soon notices him and happily calls out to Sero, but he is shocked when he senses Argal's presence inside the body. Once again, he is extra pissed, demanding to know what the hell they put inside his son. Bemlio tries to explain that they only stored the merchandise without doing anything strange to it. Talahar fumes as he points to Sero's body, protesting that something strange is inside him. Bemlio, who already knows the truth, is impressed that Talahar could clearly sense Argal's presence, even though he exists beyond the physical. He then explains to Talahar that Argal is a specialist and the best at merchandise storage in Solitude. At this point, Talahar refuses to listen to their nonsense as he prepares to teach them a lesson for laying hands on his son. He quickly calms down when Argal offers to talk with him and clear up the misunderstanding. But Talahar, refusing to hear him out, breaks a few more things in anger, commanding Argal to get out of Sero's body. Argal says it might be difficult since he has already taken a liking to Sero's body. Hearing this, Talahar angrily grabs him by the neck. While suffocating, Argal tells him that even though Sero's body is wonderful, he can just crush the kid's body with only his pinky finger. He then transforms into Sero's lycanthrope form to show Talahar the interesting things the body can do now. Talahar is completely shocked as he wonders how Sero, who is only in his teens, can freely transform at will. This is because lycanthropes can only transform at will in their 40s, and they also need to go through a bunch of awakening ceremonies. Talahar, still amazed, questions Argal about his origins. Argal, dismissing his question, tells him that Sero is safe, and he should be proud that his son has achieved the impossible. Talahar calls him an insolent prick, and asserting his dominance, he threatens to pull him out by force. Argal is unfazed by his show of strength, simply saying they need to have a good chat before pulling Talahar into the inner darkness. Talahar calls his move shallow, taking note that he is inside the mental world. He then sees Argal chilling somewhere and asks if that is his true form, but Argal ignores him. Talahar, refusing to back down, asks again but gets no meaningful response. He was only asking to determine whether Argal is a friend or foe. Argal questions him, wanting to know who the enemies of the lycanthropes are. He explains that Talahar's answer would define their relationship. After a brief pause, Talahar reveals that they are being hunted by the Emblem of Light, a cult belonging to the Light constellation. Being that this cult is also his enemy, Argal decides it would be wise to befriend Talahar. Still hung up on Argal's identity, Talahar presses him again, asking who he really is. Argal simply replies that he must take revenge. Talahar finally calms down when he senses the darkness and depth of Argal's will to take revenge. He likes that kind of deep-seated longing, so he tells Argal that he doesn't need to explain further. Argal thanks him for his understanding and adds that his life was much like the darkness here, filled with fear and terror. He continues, saying that Sero was different from him because despite how terrible life in solitude was, he still held on to hope and refused to break. Argyle also explains to Talahar that Sero endured, believing he could one day return home to his father. He then questions Talahar, asking whether he wants a son or a warrior. Talahar calls the question stupid, asking if Argyle expects him to act like a father. Recalling everything Sero has been through under his care, Argyle is not satisfied with Talahar's answer and decides to choose him. Releasing his killing intent, Argyle warns that he will not hand Sero over if Talahar does not intend to treat the boy like a son. The room tenses instantly as Talahar also prepares to fight. Wanting to assert his dominance, he calls Argyle an unwise human, sternly warning him not to complicate things further. After fiercely staring at each other for a while like two giant roosters, Talahar starts laughing, breaking the icy silence between them. He claims Argyle is ridiculous for saying something like that to him. Talahar, deciding to leave things as they are, informs Argyle that he will be back after the end of the contract period. Although Argyle's strangeness entertained him, Talahar still warns him to hand over his son the next time they meet and threatens to drag him out if he refuses. They return to reality, and Talahar leaves after his warning. After watching him leave, Bemlio thanks Argyle for helping him smooth things over. Argyle complains about his ordeal, reminding Bemlio he didn't do it for free. Hearing this, Bemlio promises to ensure that he is compensated properly because the merchandise belongs to the very important lycanthrope king. He then shows Argyle a box of pills, and Argyle examines one of the pills. Seeing that it is genuine, Bemlio promises to take care of it and hand it over to him after his solitary confinement ends. As Argyle prepares to leave, Bemlio asks one of his subordinates to escort him out. Bemlio is amazed at Argyle's talent to not only handle merchandise, but also manage customers. Meanwhile, Anton is still outside waiting for Argyle to return. While waiting, he reminisces about when he first met Argyle. 15 years ago, the galactic government issued an evacuation notice for Anton's home planet. Anton fiercely fought against the galactic government to protect his home, but he lost and was imprisoned in solitude. He was in constant agony, knowing he would have to live out the rest of his life in the worst prison in the universe. He even turned that pain into intense rage and spent years in solitude, wandering and fighting inmates like a madman. At some point, he fought until he almost reached the point of death, but just when he was about to give up the ghost, Argyle found him. Argyle saw that his eyes were burning with revenge, even though he was about to die. He told Anton that he liked fighters who cling to hope even in hopeless situations. Argyle offered to make a deal with him, promising to show him what it feels like to realize his dreams. Back in the present, Anton stops himself from being overly sentimental about the past. Soon he senses a chill in the air and realizes that someone wrapped in cold is approaching. Moments later, Alicia, a Class 6 prisoner, arrives and asks if he gave his soul to Argyle. Anton calls her the former Grade 6 champion and claims that he knows a lot about Argyle. Alicia, clearly irritated, tells him not to act like a know-it-all. The two of them quickly get into an argument, each trying to prove that they know Argyle better than the other. Deciding to be the bigger person, Alicia decides to let it slide since he also serves Argyle. Sounding condescending, Alicia asks Anton how he managed to enter the arena, saying it isn't a place anyone can just waltz into. Anton, irritated by her openly hostile tone, even though they are meeting for the first time, chalks her arrogance up to jealousy. He angrily retorts that he came in with Argyle. Alicia is taken aback, jealousy clearly written across her face. Trying to show off, Anton adds that he knows arena prisoners can't move around freely, implying that she must be envious of him for being able to follow their master without restriction. Filled with jealousy, Alicia pulls out her ice blade, glaring at Anton as she angrily tells him she hates him. Anton, matching her intensity, responds that he feels the exact same way, and beckons her to bring it on. At first, feeling confident, he looks down on her sword, considering it weak compared to his massive mallet. But soon, his expression changes to one of surprise, and he is impressed to see the extent of her power as she rises into the air preparing to strike him. Anton loses his favorite cap and a few furs during the strike, yet he manages to withstand the attack, barely holding his ground. Refusing to back down, Alicia closes in and unleashes a flurry of rapid, precise strikes in close combat. Anton, relying on his strength and reflexes, blocks each attack, but when he tries to retaliate, Alicia effortlessly dodges every move with incredible speed and agility. Anton roars in frustration and prepares to strike again, but Alicia surprises him by launching a barrage of sharp, glimmering icicles. He dodges them just in time and draws his sword, meeting her in a clash of swords. The fierce duel between them continues relentlessly for a while. Anton fights with all his might, but he gradually becomes overwhelmed because Alicia is faster and way too flashy with her moves. Despite his strength and experience, Anton finds himself struggling to keep up with her relentless assault, realizing just how formidable his opponent truly is. He decides he's had enough of warming up and prepares to unleash his ultimate technique, Domain Expansion Earth. This ultimate technique causes Anton's body to grow larger, his muscles and frame expanding with immense power. His armor, unable to contain the transformation, shatters and falls off. Watching this, Alicia's eyes widen as she realizes he is the legendary prisoner known as the Weapon Master, rumored to be able to command countless weapons with unmatched skill. Moments later, Anton fully transforms into a colossal, fierce bear with 4 powerful arms. One hand grips a massive sword, another wields his mallet, while the remaining 2, clad in armored gauntlets, hold a gigantic axe. Fully equipped with his overwhelming new arsenal, he roars, announcing it is his turn to show off, and lunges forward toward Alicia with terrifying speed and force. Before their weapons can clash, a commanding voice echoes through, demanding they halt. Argal appears, stepping between them, effortlessly restraining the two, though both still thrash and struggle like children caught in a petty quarrel. With a single stern look, Argal firmly commands them to stop. After fiercely warning them to stop, Anton and Alicia finally calm down and stop struggling. Once he releases them from their restraints, Argal immediately scolds Anton, reminding him that Tolman specifically told him not to cause trouble. Alicia stays on her knees, cowering like a child about to be punished by her mother. Argal then scolds both of them, saying they shouldn't be settling a petty quarrel in such a reckless way. Soon, the two of them start bickering again, each trying to convince Argal that the other started it first. Argal asks why they're fighting when both are his friends. Alicia protests, insisting Argal is her master and will remain so until death. Argal sighs, saying she hasn't changed, and tells her to speak to him casually, like Alice, who visited recently. Alicia freezes, and it is revealed that Alice is her sister. After exchanging pleasantries, Argal says he heard she became the inter-arena champion and asks if she came for him. Alicia confirms, explaining she learned he was here and made a deal with Tolman to win a few extra matches in exchange for permission to visit. Concerned, Argal says she shouldn't have risked herself just to see him, but Alicia doesn't mind since she's never lost and dreams of becoming an undefeated legend like him. Argal, feigning humility, insists he's just an ordinary Class 1 prisoner, leaving Anton bewildered. Alicia reassures him that his class doesn't lessen his achievements and says he'll always be her role model. Soon, Tolman's voice crackles over the intercom, announcing that he's had enough of their soapy reunion. He orders Argal and Anton to step out of the arena, but Argal refuses, explaining that they intend to look around for a bit. He instructs Anton and Alicia to follow him, hinting that he plans to show them something and introduce them to someone. Meanwhile, watching from the monitors, Tolman regrets agreeing to Alicia's deal. He had only allowed her a quick visit, but now, seeing her leave with them, he only hoped that nothing would go wrong. Later, Argal, Anton, and Alicia arrive at the nuclear power plant. The electricity generated from it powers the entire Solitude system. From there, he leads them on another tour to the Ocean Water Purification Center, which pumps seawater from deep within the planet and converts it into drinking water. Argal explains that gladiators can drink as much water as they need, which is why so many aspire to become arena fighters. As they make their way to the next stop, Anton and Alicia start bickering like children. They soon arrive at the animal breeding facility, where Solitude's creatures like the grotesque janitors and fire-breathing dragons are raised. Anton is stunned, unable to believe a place like this actually exists. Argal explains that the galactic government permits it, provided they share their research data. Anton is amazed by how much Argal knows about all of this. Moments later, they reach a lab where Tylun, a Class 7 life science clerk who had been expecting Argal, steps out to meet them. Without wasting time, she asks if the others intend to listen as well. Argal nods and tells her to speak freely. Tylun begins explaining his condition and brings up his medical stats. Based on his projected life expectancy, she says it's a miracle Argal is still alive, and there is no way for her to stop his body from slowly shutting down. Anton is stunned, and Tylun adds that Argal's health has worsened because of possession. She explains using a child's body makes it even worse. Anton is devastated, knowing Argal possessed him several times in the past to help him grow stronger, unaware that each instance drained Argal's life. Tylun warns Argal to stop using possession entirely. When Anton asks if Argal's body can still be restored, Tylun says it's possible and shows them an image of a miracle pill that could keep him alive. Argal tells her that Bemlio has already promised to give him the pill once his solitary confinement ends. Eager to get it sooner, Anton asks Tylun how he can obtain one elsewhere. To their shock, she explains that the pill is extremely expensive, that one dose costs as much as an entire planet. An awkward silence follows before Argal sends Alicia and Anton outside so he can speak with Tylun privately. As they leave, Anton suspects Alicia already knew about Argal's situation. When he questions her, she calls him stupid for not figuring it out sooner. Annoyed, Anton turns to scold her, only to see tears already streaming down her face. After they're gone, Argal asks Tylun about the situation outside Solitude. She tells him that the Order of Constellations has taken an interest in darkness, and that Kreisman has been trying to stall them, but he's nearly reached his limit. Tylun adds that Argal must stop storing the merchandise, and that Kreisman has ordered her to give Argal the pills for free once he completes the contract. Hearing the words free pills makes Argal's skin crawl. He knows that a businessman never gives anything away without an agenda. Argal realizes that the only reason he'd offer something for free is if he intends to gain leverage over him. He immediately refuses the offer, saying he won't accept any freebies. Tylun is impressed that Argal still maintains his usual principles. Next, she informs him that Alicia's market value recently skyrocketed. She explains that Alicia has been spending all her winnings buying him pills, and so far she has been able to buy only 2. Talon says Alicia can actually sell herself to the richest universe to escape the darkness. However, she chooses to stay in Solitude just because of Argal. Argal finds her sacrifice unnecessary, and even though Alicia would be disappointed to hear him say that, Tylun also agrees with him. She didn't want to say it in front of the other two before, but Tylun finally reveals that his body might not be able to endure for long, even with the pills. Argal says he already felt it and thanks her for the warning. He wants to know how much time he has left, and he learns from Tylun that he has 6 months left, according to the data she's collected. Even though it seems impossible at this point, Tylun hopes his spirit can hold on and endure his body until the 2-year goal. Shortly after his lab visit, Argal and Anton prepare to leave the arena. Before leaving, he tells a sad Alicia to take care of herself. Alicia hesitates before informing him that she plans to challenge the Class 7 title. Anton thinks she's crazy for attempting to challenge a Class 7 prisoner when she is only Class 6. After reflecting on their conversation with Tylun, Argyle carefully asks if she is doing it for his pills. Alicia ignores him, saying she wants to become Class 7 for herself, and assures him not to worry, promising that she will definitely win. Argyle warns that even if she manages to win, she might not be able to walk for a while afterward. Knowing she won't listen despite his cautions, he decides to support her ambition, telling her to make sure she is a Class 7 champion when he visits the arena next time. Alicia is surprised that he agreed so easily, and as they leave, she respectfully bows to her master, vowing to protect him no matter what. 6 days later, Anton waits outside the solitary cell with Sero's body unconscious, and soon Argyle steps out of solitary confinement. Anton takes a knee to welcome him back, and Argyle explains that he was in another body, so solitary confinement wasn't bad at all. Finally, Sero returns to his own body and also wakes up in tears. During his agony in the darkness, he couldn't feel anything, but now he is deeply grateful that he can feel something again. After tearing up a little more, Sero notices Anton beside him and jumps up, startled. Argyle introduces Anton to him as a friend. Sero can't believe a giant bear can also be a friend, but then he recalls Argyle mentioning it previously. Even though Sero is still a bit groggy, Argyle gets down to serious business, seeing that they might run out of time before he can fully educate him about the liberation. With the event starting soon, Argyle explains to him that the liberation is quite similar to the summoning and release processes, all of which Sero has experienced before. He tells Sero to stay sharp in order to survive, warning him to move only during the day and never at night. As Argyle turns to leave, Sero tries to remember everything he said, but some of it slips past his memory, making Sero panic. Moments later, Jacob meets up with them, saying Bemlio sent him to give Argyle the 3 doses of pills as promised. He then informs Argyle that liberation starts in an hour. After handing over the pills, Jacob takes his leave, and Argyle quickly examines them before swallowing them. Almost immediately, his body is reinvigorated, his muscles visibly buffing up. Anton, curious about his next plans, asks what he'll do now. Argyle explains that he was just thinking about how to spend his time since he can't possess anyone anymore. Basically, this was his hobby, and now he can't enjoy it anymore. Anton thinks it's for the best to avoid further damage to his body, but to Argyle, it feels like loneliness, which he considers cruelty. Trying to cheer him up, Anton suggests they focus on the upcoming liberation. He promises to find Argyle even if they get separated later. Anton excuses himself, preparing to go find some honey before joining them. After promising that he won't be long, Anton stammers, asking Argyle if he also likes honey. Argyle notices his fidgety behavior and immediately realizes he's lying. In truth, Anton doesn't want Argyle to worry about him during the liberation, so he uses the search for honey as an excuse to leave. During the awkward silence, Argyle contemplates his next step, quietly resolving to take down anyone or anything that threatens his friends in this oppressive darkness. He vows never again to be complacent, just like in his past when he was always passive and tried to avoid any conflicts. Argyle swears his days of living like a fugitive are over, and now he plans to take down all his troublesome enemies one by one, especially Darkus, who's been chasing him at every turn. Since he can no longer do possessions, which had been his favorite pastime, Argyle concludes that hunting and taking down his enemies might actually be a thrilling new hobby for him. Suddenly the alarm blares loudly, signaling the beginning of the liberation. This time, instead of the usual golden lights, red lights appear, ready to teleport them to the location of the liberation. As they are teleported, Sero is momentarily shocked by the sudden warm feeling of sunlight on his skin. Soon they arrive in a large, dense forest called the jungle, and Sero is stunned as he takes in the vast jungle around him. Basically, on the prison planet, there is solitude to confine prisoners. But this planet also houses a massive continent designated to release them during the liberation. Here, in this open continent, the prisoners are forced to survive in the dangerous jungle for an entire month. The purpose of the liberation system is simply to torment the prisoners just like during the summoning when they faced the fire-breathing beast, and the release when they encountered terrifying creatures in the corridors. During the liberation, they are left to deal with the terrifying natives. Just as Sero is still trying to get a hold of his surroundings, he suddenly turns around to see the natives rushing aggressively towards him with sharp spears. He is confused for a brief moment, wondering who they are, but Sero, wasting no time, quickly transforms and takes to his heels. However, after chasing him for a while, Sero soon painfully realizes that he is no match for their relentless speed. As they begin to attack, he quickly deploys his wind attribute to dodge their attacks, but even with that, Sero is immediately overwhelmed and fatally wounded. Sero is stunned as he desperately wonders why he can't dodge their strikes even with his attribute fully deployed. Soon, he notices that, apart from being fast, they are also highly skilled fire attribute users. Wasting no time to think, he continues to run as fast as he can, and as he does, the number on Sero's neck suddenly changes from 3 to 4, signaling that he is now officially a Class 4 prisoner. Feeling a bit pumped and determined, he decides to focus on the enemy directly in front of him. Elsewhere in the jungle, a red light shoots up into the sky, and a man is seen with a red circle on his head, fleeing as the light follows him. Soon, several prisoners with weapons start chasing after him. The man, determined to live, runs for his life because he can't survive if they catch him. As several prisoners chase after him like some prize, one of them calls out, telling him to accept his fate. Another one tells him that his choice will save many prisoners. The man being hunted bluntly rejects their preaching, refusing to stop. As he runs, he bursts into tears, wondering why he is in this situation. Suddenly, one of his assailants deploys his light attribute and releases a chain with which he grabs the man by his foot, making him stumble to the ground. The man continues to struggle as the rest of the prisoners prepare to terminate him. However, a dark attribute user suddenly appears from behind, deploying a shadow armor to protect him just in time before he can be chopped. Several weapons almost strike him, but the armor shields him and absorbs every impact. His assailants grow confused as they continue jabbing at him with their weapons, yet the armor refuses to give way. The light attribute user soon arrives at the scene and orders the rest of the prisoners to take their battle formation, warning them that they are about to face a large number of demon worshippers. The demon worshippers who rescued the man have already eliminated the 2 prisoners who tried to strike him earlier. The situation becomes clear. The demon worshippers cannot allow the man they call the adversary to die, while the light attribute user and his group are determined to kill him. With both sides driven by opposing intentions, they prepare for combat, and moments later, chaos erupts as the 2 groups clash fiercely over the adversary. One side shouts to protect him, while the other side shouts to destroy him. Meanwhile, from the top of a cliff, Argyle and Anton watch the chaotic battle raging below. Argyle instructs Anton to help him take care of the situation. Anton immediately jumps down from the cliff into the battleground and, without wasting any time, rips apart the demon worshippers. He continues rampaging fiercely, taking them down one by one and sending panic through their spines as the battlefield becomes stained with demon vermin blood. At this point, it is no longer a fight, but a merciless thrashing driven by a vendetta. After lining the field with their corpses, Argyle joins Anton below as the prisoners erupt in joyful cheers, praising their savior. The light attribute user from earlier, Barura, a Class 6 prisoner and member of the Light Constellation cult, greets Argyle. They seem familiar with each other, as Argyle remarks that Barura is still shouldering quite the burden, as always. Barura calmly responds that he chose this life and considers it his duty, rather than a burden. While observing the prisoners, Argyle explains that he only said it because Barura seems to be overexerting himself by being responsible for them. Barura smiles gently, saying he will heed Argyle's words. Meanwhile, the adversary they had been chasing earlier had already met his end during the chaos. The adversary is a prisoner who bears a red mark on their forehead after the liberation. A red pillar also appears above the adversary's head, just like the red light that shot into the sky earlier. The red light disappears the moment the adversary is found by another prisoner. The most important rule is that if the adversary is not taken down within 2 days, a horribly terrifying great monster is summoned into the jungle. This is why the prisoners hunt for and try to eliminate the adversary, hoping to avoid being wiped out by the great monsters. However, since the demon worshippers are a group of dim-witted nincompoops, they protect the adversary instead, wishing for a mass thrashing so they can use the piled bodies and harvest the life force as ingredients. This entire adversary system, as usual, is just another method used by Solitude to torment the prisoners by forcing them to turn against one another. As Argyle and Anton continue their journey, Anton asks about his relationship with Barura. Argyle replies that Barura is simply an overly kind-hearted man trying to take responsibility for the lives of all the prisoners in the jungle. He explains that even if they manage to prevent the summoning of a great monster, Solitude will always find new ways to torment the prisoners. While they are running, Argyle suddenly comes to a halt as another red light shoots into the sky, signaling the location of the next adversary. They quickly take off, racing toward the adversary, and Argyle asks Anton if he has ever been one. Anton shockingly reveals that he has been an adversary twice. He explains that the great monster summoned becomes as strong as the adversary's rank. He adds that the great monster summoned for his 6th class self eliminated a massive number of prisoners in the jungle back then. Anton says he is not ashamed to have survived after becoming an adversary, even though many prisoners were taken out. Argyle also agrees with his mentality. Anton then asks Argyle if he has ever experienced being an adversary. Argyle reveals that he has been the adversary so many times that he has grown numb to it, although for some reason it bothers him a little today. Anton then guesses that he must be worried about Sero, and Argyle confirms it. They continue running as fast as they can until Argyle suddenly stops, finally catching up to Sero. Anton is shocked when he sees the red pillar and the mark on Sero's head. Sero, not understanding the situation, tells Argyle about the strange mark on his forehead. Argyle is not surprised since he had already guessed it earlier, which is why he was racing toward the light. They all stand there in awkward silence, staring at one another and wondering what comes next. Meanwhile, at Barura's temporary shelter, one of the prisoners walks in shouting his name. He informs Barura that the target came to their shelter. Everyone is shocked to hear this, and they can't believe that an adversary walked into an enemy camp on their own. The prisoners are happy that they don't have to run around like cat and mouse, which means no fear of great monsters coming after them too. They all head outside, where Barura has already set up a barrier to keep outsiders from entering their main camp. He steps outside the barrier, telling them to wait while he chats with the visitors. Seeing Argyle on the other side, Barura tries to draw a clear line between them now that they are on opposing sides. Argyle calmly explains that Sero is his ally and that he only came to warn them to back off. He sternly threatens him that anyone who lays a hand on the kid will immediately be terminated. Barura is terrified as he wonders who exactly Sero is to Argyle. He breaks into panicked sweats, knowing that the situation might turn chaotic. Barura is torn as he contemplates what to do because if a great monster is summoned, the prisoners might die, but if they fight Argyle, they will certainly be wiped out, leaving no exceptions or survivors. Seeing that Argyle came all the way here, Barura realizes he must be trying to extend him an olive branch, so he decides to test it. He asks Argyle for his all-time favorite thing, making deals, which always piques his interest. Barura asks Argyle to work with them. Since the monster will show up tomorrow, they can hunt it together. As silence falls between them, Barura quietly hopes Argyle accepts the deal because if they try to hunt the adversary, he will just wipe them out like troublesome ants. Barura is not even worried about the great monster anymore because he knows that the old man can easily handle it on his own. He turns to look at his followers, hoping they can also read the situation and not make a fuss. Still getting no response, Barura bows his head, thanking Argyle for being considerate enough to offer them a way out. The prisoners don't seem too happy about their leader surrendering, as they begin questioning how they're supposed to survive the great monster. Barura asks Argyle again, just to make sure they are clear on the deal. Argyle then asks what he gets in return for protecting them, and Barura offers him his life. Hearing this, the prisoners are surprised, while others are angry as they try to convince him otherwise. They wonder what would happen to them if anything happens to their leader. Barura gently tells them not to be scared, as he has to make the necessary sacrifice. To him, his life is useless compared to the numerous lives of the prisoners. Argyle is impressed by his reckless sacrifice, and as he leaves, he tells Barura to rest because the summoning begins at noon the next day. As they walk away, Sero apologizes for causing trouble. Argyle tells him not to worry about it because in solitude, survival is everything. He tells Sero to focus on staying alive and forget everything else. The following day, they meet up with Barura and his followers as everyone prepares for the summoning. Argyle tells Barura that they only need 4 people to fight the monster, leaving everyone confused. Barura protests that 4 is a bit too few, but Argyle explains that they need to assess the great monster's abilities before deciding otherwise. This is because if it is a type that heals by eating flesh, then having too many people will surely backfire. Barura realizes that Argyle is right, and he finds it reassuring that he has factored in different scenarios. After deciding who goes to battle the great monster, Barura casts a barrier spell, sealing off the rest of the prisoners from the battleground. The chosen 4 are Sero, Barura, Anton, and finally the OG himself, Argyle. Moments later, the red mark on Sero comes alive, shooting into the sky as the summoning begins. Shortly after the light phenomenon, the great monster appears just as the 4 all rush towards it. The summoned great monster is a giant beast with a mixture of scorpion and devil. As the monster roars fiercely in the distance, the prisoners behind the barrier are extremely terrified, wishing they had just taken out the adversary instead of facing such a strong beast. Barura immediately deploys his light attribute as he chants a couple of incantations, summoning a lumen shield around himself, Anton, and Sero. Argyle is the only one who seems to be immune to it, but he is not concerned as he pulls out his favorite princess wand, beckoning his comrades to join him in battle. At the same time, they all lunge forward, charging towards the great monster with Barura in the rear, maintaining the lumen shield. As Anton, Sero, and Argyle attack the monster from all sides, the prisoners behind the shield watch in utter amazement. Barura casts another light attribute spell, Solar Snare, ensnaring the monster and limiting its movement while the others continue to attack it from all sides. Anton also deploys his earth attribute, summoning a giant boulder shaped like a mallet, which he smashes into the monster, almost causing the earth beneath to quake. After the dust settles, he is shocked to see that it did not even leave a scratch on the great monster at all. Argyle is impressed by its creator, Tylun, who is a genius at combining genes to create new life forms. He praises her again for creating an insane masterpiece this time. After studying the monster, Argyle finally has an idea about its strength. He finds everything about the monster exceptional, but Argyle is undeterred as he beckons to his crew to begin the main hunt. Soon, they all jump into action, attacking the monster, while Argyle stands back, still preparing to join in. Argyle feels a tingle in his fingertips as he reads into the monster to find a weak point. He learns that the monster is a close-range defense specialist. Even though that is the most troublesome kind, Argyle seems to have found a way around it. Moments later, Anton gets injured by the monster's attack. After feeling its direct hit, Anton realizes that the monster is a Class 7 rank. The monster lunges towards him, but Anton dodges its strike, while also noticing that it is fast and can deflect most attacks. Even if one manages to strike it, its hide is too tough, leaving no damage. Despite all these daunting issues, Anton pushes forward, knowing he is not fighting alone. From the rear, Barura supports him, repairing his injuries with light magic. Meanwhile, Argyle decides to borrow Sero's body for a moment. He forms a connection to him and takes control, transforming Sero's body into its complete lycanthrope form. Anton is left speechless as he watches Argyle launch himself into the field using Sero's body. Argyle calls out to him, and Anton understands what he means as he also transforms into his full beast form. As Argyle and Anton charge into the battlefield with guns blazing, Argyle tells him that it is time to end the game. He then instructs Barura to use his magic to heighten their reflexes and speed to the highest possible level. Barura immediately unleashes his light attribute and pours his blessing magic over both of them as they confront the giant monster. The battle intensifies as Argyle and Anton relentlessly attack the monster, leaving it no breathing space. Argyle urges Anton not to pause, and Anton obeys. With all 4 arms equipped with weapons, Anton, the master of weapons, keeps at it, swiftly jabbing one weapon after another. Argyle does not let up as he rapidly claws at the great monster while Barura's light blessing boosts his speed. Feeling its space grow tighter, the monster retaliates and strikes at them from both sides. Realizing that they will make no progress at this rate, Anton decides they need to use his secret ultimate ability. Barura, urging Argyle to end the battle quickly, casts a spell that deploys a double solar snare to trap the monster. Argyle then tells Anton that it is his turn and they are counting on him. Anton, fully confident, assures Argyle to leave everything to him. He charges at the monster, releasing strike after strike with remarkable speed. Soon, Anton's thoughts drift to how happy he has been lately, fighting side by side with his esteemed master. Once he has attacked to his satisfaction, Anton places his hand on the ground and channels his earth attribute, Grasp of the Earth. With this ability, he commands the land to form massive hands of solid earth. He attempts to seize the monster from behind, but the monster reacts instantly and slices the earthen hands apart, leaving Anton shocked. As the monster rushes toward him, Anton can feel its momentum from afar and decides it is far too insane for a mere artificially cooked specimen. Even though it is intimidating, Anton refuses to relent as he once again deploys another earth attribute, Earthen Shackles. Using his fists to control the giant earth hands, he grabs the monster from all sides, using the massive hands as shackles from different angles. Meanwhile, the esteemed spectators on the other side give their useless 2 cents from the safety of the shield. They question Anton's decision, asking who traps a giant monster with ordinary dirt. They even advise him to use a weapon instead, as if they had not just watched him earlier with 4 arms full of giant weapons, striking the monster without success. But unknown to them, Anton's earthen shackles can temporarily change the enemy's attribute to earth. Anton does not care if it breaks free as long as he can restrain the monster for only a few seconds so that Argyle can deliver the finishing blow. As the earthen shackles hold the monster in place, Argyle leaps in while Barura focuses all his light magic on him and grants him a boost called Radiant Force. Barura explains that from the beginning, Argyle had already determined the monster's attribute to be lightning. Since lightning is grounded by earth and earth is cut by wind, Argyle devised a step-by-step plan to render the monster vulnerable. Using Anton's earth shackles, they already shifted the monster's attribute to earth temporarily. While this change in its attribute is still active, Argyle will move in to finish the monster using Sero's wind attribute, which can cleanly cut through earth. As Barura's boost reaches Argyle, he deploys Sero's wind attribute, tapping into his Wolf's Claw ability. Argyle swiftly tears through the monster with his claws. The monster is fatally wounded in the attack and even loses one of its stingers. As it breaks free from Anton's earth shackles, it roars in pain and staggers toward them. Anton grabs it from below while Barura traps it with his double solar snare. Argyle commends him and takes a powerful leap. Wolfclaw's still out, then forcefully slashes at its head, destroying it completely. Seeing that the monster is finished, Argyle solemnly tells it that its purpose of creation has been fulfilled, saying it can now rest. As the monster crashes to the ground, a powerful cheer erupts from the prisoners behind the shield as they rejoice, catching and eating bugs to celebrate another day surviving Solitude's torment. A breath of relief washes over Anton and Barura as the prisoners continue cheering after surviving a great monster summoning. Once again, hope ignites in the hearts of over 100 survivors as they watch Argyle and the others standing beside the fallen great monster. This renewed hope is sparked by none other than one old prisoner, Argyle Rastros.